As Lin Yan's words slowly fell to the ground, the expressions of the three people varied. Doflamingo smiled with interest and fear. Tezzolo's face turned extremely dark instantly. Looking at Lin Yan, who was so rested in front of him, Tezzolo felt like a clown. As a rabbit, he shows his fangs to the beast. Thinking that you are sure of victory is actually deceiving yourself. People have seen through all of your tricks at a glance. There is no doubt that this time the temptation completely failed. The man in front of me is a far more terrifying monster than I imagined. No one has ever dared to despise and humiliate themselves like this. Tezzolo's face became a little distorted, and he simply stopped pretending and looked at Lin Yan in front of him with burning eyes. How on earth is it done? Even if he lost, Tezzolo wanted to know the reason. After all, his subordinates are those with the ability to transport fruits. In the past, anyone who dared to participate in his gambling would end up with nothing. Because luck has always been on his side, however, Lin Yan was somewhat dismissive of Tezzolo's anger. Didn't I tell you before? She's not quite ready yet. Although she can control luck, it's only a very general ability. As he spoke, Lin Yan stretched out his hand to play with the turntable. This thing is a machine after all, isn't it? Doflamingo immediately showed an expression of realization. We all know, like this turntable. On the surface it looks like a game of luck. In fact, it is just a matter of numbers, and more importantly, this thing is a mechanical structure. As a thunder fruit user, Lin Yan can be said to be the natural enemy of all machines. Tezzolo didn't look at the almanac when he went out today. Luck? No. That stuff doesn't matter at all. If it is a strong person who can easily control the overall situation, it does not matter what the luck of the weak is, as they will be completely dominated no matter what. That's it. You're out of luck. However, after understanding what Lin Yan meant, Tezzolo suddenly showed a ferocious smile on his face. There is no doubt that he plans to take action directly. The last thing Tezzolo wants to see is someone showing a confident smile in front of him. That would remind him of the past that he least wanted to face. Anyone who smiles in front of himself, all must die. Tezzolo's expression began to look crazy, and the whole room began to flow like liquid. It's obvious. This room is made entirely of gold. And this is also the cage that Tezzolo specially prepared for Lin Yan. He is a user with the ability of the golden fruit. When everything around here is gold, he is undoubtedly the strongest. Tezzolo felt like he could already see it. The famous captain of Division 17 looked embarrassed. However, is it really possible? In fact, only Tezzolo had this idea. Seeing his whole body gradually being covered by liquid gold, not to mention Lin Yan himself looked down upon it. The three girls behind him had no intention of taking action at all, they just looked at the ferocious Tezzolo with the eyes of a fool. Even Doflamingo lowered his guard and showed a sneer on his face. Idiot. Who should I mess with this monster? Looking for death. Lin Yan sat calmly on the spot, with no intention of moving at all. It was not until Tezzolo's whole body was covered with liquid gold that he lightly stretched out a finger. Let me tell you something. Lin Yan yawned leisurely. Gold is conductive, don't you even know this common sense? Billy. As soon as he finished speaking, a dazzling electric light popped out from Lin Yan's fingertips and hit the Tezzolo statue in an instant. Want to know about electrotherapy? Tezzolo howled instantly. Covered in gold, he had no ability to resist in front of Lin Yan. He was just electrocuted and unable to move in an instant. Under the powerful lightning strike, the gold began to boil like a liquid, which was a precursor to Tezzolo's ability to lose control. At the same time, the light and heat generated gradually filled the room with the smell of barbecue. That's almost it, Captain Lin. If he is killed, we won't be able to get any money. It looks almost done. Doflamingo then shrugged with a smile. I didn't get the money yet. What a pity it would be to kill him. Lin Yan waved his hand and casually dispersed the lightning that filled the room. Just as he was about to say something, the door was suddenly kicked open. Bang. I heard there is a great gambling game here. You guys, come and play with me. An extremely arrogant voice sounded. Everyone turned away and saw an ugly man with a disgusting hood that looked like soap bubbles walking in the door. Celestial dragons. Everyone's expressions changed. Hancock immediately took a step back subconsciously, and even Tezzolo, who was almost roasted, stood up in excitement. Ahem. It turns out to be Lord Celestial Dragons. Tezzolo forced a smile. For a moment, Doflamingo's eyes burst out with extreme resentment, but in the end he just snorted and said nothing. The arrival of just one Celestial Dragons. Just let the situation there change suddenly. Even the overlords like Tezzolo and Doflamingo seem to be trying to settle the matter at this moment. This shows the great power of the world's nobility. The only person present who doesn't care about celestial dragons and doesn't even plan to move his position is, of course, Lin Yan. Such a unique appearance naturally attracted the attention of celestial dragons immediately. You don't greet me when you see me. Who are you? Celestial dragons pulled out his gun and shouted at Lin Yan with some dissatisfaction. Well, it looks like he's just a country bumpkin. Listen up. Standing in front of you are the noble celestial dragons. Why don't you quickly make way for me and kneel down to salute? I'm in a good mood today. If you do as you say, I won't forgive your rudeness. Celestial dragons said extremely proudly. No one dares to be rude to the nobles of the world. Nobody. Just not killing the person in front of you right away is already a great gift, so why else would you need a bicycle? Isn't it just that you have lost your dignity? The worst case scenario is losing your life. What we celestial dragons have lost is the majesty of the world's nobility. Celestial dragons naturally think so, waiting for the man in front of you to give in next time. However, under the gaze of everyone whose expressions changed drastically, Lin Yan just glanced at the waist in front of him indifferently. Do you have no mouth or no legs? Do you need me to help you sew them up? The atmosphere in the whole room suddenly became silent. Ain and Momosagi stared at Lin Yan in disbelief. Wake up. Hey, those are celestial dragons. Doflamingo and Tezzolo's expressions changed drastically, and they immediately distanced themselves from Lin Yan, fearing that the celestial dragons would see that they knew each other. Dead. Doflamingo and Tetzolo only had this idea in mind. The cold sweat on my head was dripping down. Brother. Can you please mess with the celestial dragons and not take us too with them? Hancock was the only one with an extremely proud look in his beautiful eyes. This was the husband he fancied. Even the celestial dragons dared to challenge him. Anyone who refuses will die. Even the celestial dragons. Who else? You. You. Insolent, rude person. After being stunned for a long time, celestial dragons finally realized what Lin Yan said, and his whole body was shaking with anger. The gun in his hand was ready to fire without hesitation. Die. Must die. If such a madman could survive, it would be a humiliation to the nobles of this world. The celestial dragons were furious. However, before he could shoot, Lin Yan had already turned around and slapped him. Get out. What kind of loser would shoot in front of Lousy? Did I give you face? Boom. Lin Yan slapped celestial dragons on the face, and with a loud noise, celestial dragons flew out. 12 turns in the air, an elevation angle of 45 degrees, and 3 back rolls seamlessly connected. After a series of difficult movements, celestial dragons howled miserably and hit the corner without moving. You. After finally catching his breath, celestial dragons covered half of his already swollen face and pointed tremblingly at Lin Yan. Lin Yan just sneered. What are you? If you can't speak, just say it. It's an eyesore. You. Celestial dragons feels like his sanity is about to explode. You are dead, I tell you. How dare you hit a noble world noble, even if you are. Huh? Anger continued to boil in his heart, but after seeing Lin Yan's face, celestial dragons was stunned. The captain of the 17th Division of the Whitebeard Pirates? Celestial dragons was startled. Things started almost a week ago. It was a sunny afternoon. As usual, he was spending time torturing the slaves in his courtyard, feeling very happy, and then he suddenly received an order. The order comes from the 5 elders, the supreme rulers of the world government. The content of the order is about the man in front of me. From now on, whenever the celestial dragons encounter the captain of the 17th Division of the Whitebeard Pirates, they must protect their own safety as the first priority. Depending on the situation, they may choose to retreat first. The content of the command is as above. Speak English. If you see this plague god in the future, please avoid it. Of course, celestial dragons was extremely unhappy with such an outrageous order. They are world nobles. Do you want to walk around when you see someone? Why do not you go to hell? At that time, many celestial dragons came to the 5 elders and demanded an explanation. After all, they had been arrogant as world nobles for so many years, how could they simply accept it? But in the end it was useless. The attitude of 5 elders was unexpectedly tough. After beating some of the most noisy celestial dragons, the matter was settled. At first, no one paid much attention to it, but I'm going to have bad luck for 8 lifetimes when I go out today, right? How come I can just come here to have some fun and avoid encountering this plague god? Celestial dragons was so wronged that they almost cried. If I had known, I would have taken a second look. When you see this guy, you can just turn around and leave. He is just an ordinary celestial dragons, and he is not a noble among the celestial dragons. He still dare not disobey the orders of the 5 elders. But is it okay to just forget about being beaten? That's impossible. If you retreat in such a dejected manner, where will you put your face? Then. Celestial Dragons gritted its teeth and stamped its feet. Even if you are a member of the Whitebeard Pirates and we are warned by the 5 elders, are we Celestial Dragons vegetarians? Think about the countless nobles of the world standing behind you. Celestial Dragons, rise up. You must die today. Unless you are willing to give those women to me as slaves, otherwise this matter will not be over today. Celestial Dragons continued to shout while covering his face. In his opinion, just a few humans. It doesn't matter if he becomes his own slave. Anyway, no one knows how many Marie Joys die every year, so it's not even worth mentioning. Even this god of plague will not fall out with him, right? Then he brought back several slaves. The magnanimity means that those who don't know are not guilty, so forget it. Lin Yan paid compensation, and he had a little bit of face when he went back. He wouldn't leave in despair after being beaten. It sounds better, doesn't it? Celestial Dragons feels like a genius. If I escape from the tiger's mouth, I can boast about it for a year. Huh? Seeing that Celestial Dragons actually said the word, unless Tetsolo and Doflamingo's expressions were stunned at the same time. Both are smart people. Naturally, his reaction was much faster than that of ordinary people, and he immediately realized that something was going wrong. Celestial Dragons also say unless? Is it wrong to direct this script? The next step should not be for the strong ones to come out together, and then Lin Yan will die without a burial place, right? Oh, the world government has no ability to kill Lin Yan. Well, that's okay. Doflamingo looked at Lin Yan with a strange expression. Is this guy actually capable of subduing the world's nobles in disguise? Tetsolo was even more shocked. Brother, this is it. After beating Celestial Dragons, you actually give away a few people and forget about it? I also want to have this kind of treatment. Suddenly, Tetsolo no longer had any dissatisfaction with Lin Yan. What a hero. Why don't you accept the slap from Big Brother with a smile? For a moment, Tetsolo's admiration for Lin Yan was like a surging river. If the situation was not right now, he would have planned to take Lin Yan's hand. For him who had suffered greatly from the Celestial Dragons. What Lin Yan looks like now, it is simply the light of the right path. However, Lin Yan's eyes darkened instantly, and a frightening and intense murderous intent erupted in his eyes. The entire space was instantly dominated by Lin Yan's powerful killing intent. Celestial Dragon's face also became extremely pale. He had no idea where he had offended the murderous god in front of him, and he wanted to beg for mercy, but he was unable to speak due to the huge murderous intent. Lin Yan's eyes became completely indifferent. No, you Celestial Dragons bastards are as disgusting as ever. As the saying goes, dragons have reverse scales. No matter who it is, there is a bottom line that must not be crossed. Even a complete villain like Doflamingo. There must be corners in your heart that cannot be touched. For Lin Yan, his knee Lin is the important person around him. But what did the bastard in front of me say? He must die today. God can't save him even if he comes. Lin Yan's eyes burst out with extremely strong murderous intent, and his aura soared to the sky. Everyone present couldn't help but stop breathing. Hancock looked at Lin Yan proudly and tenderly. This is the person you like. Whenever and wherever, as long as he is slightly wrong, Lin Yan will stand in front of him immediately. Just like that time more than 10 years ago, I killed Marie Joys alone. Seeing Lin Yan's murderous expression, Hancock didn't have any fear at all, he just felt like his heart was about to melt. Ain and Momoshiki also looked at Lin Yan with wavering eyes. His face turned slightly red and he didn't know what he was thinking. However, facing the same model, Doflamingo and Tetsolo were filled with fear. Super, we know you are the eldest brother. Stop it. Big Brother keeps people under his command. Calm down. Calm. Doflamingo broke through the defense for the first time and shouted at Lin Yan in a panic. Captain Lin. Let's stop here, otherwise. Don't worry, only one person will die today. However, in response, Lin Yan just glanced at the two of them lightly, without any wavering in his eyes, and grabbed the frightened Celestial Dragons. Then he slammed it on the table, boom. Under the huge force, how can Celestial Dragon's body, which is as weak as waste, resist? It immediately popped like a balloon. The red and white blood was all over the floor. It was obvious that he was dead and could not die anymore. Bloody. Miserable. This is Lin Yan's revenge on those who dare to touch his reverse scale. It doesn't matter if you are a Celestial Dragons or some other cat or dog. All must die. The whole room fell silent again. The three girls straightened up and walked to Lin Yan without hesitation, without even looking at the Celestial Dragons at their feet. People can live on their knees, but they can never die on their knees. No matter what happens today, they will stand with Lin Yan. This is killing. Doflamingo murmured to himself with a pale face, looking at the bodies of the celestial dragons not far away that were shattered to pieces on the ground, unable to be put back together. He only felt a cold air from the soles of his feet to the sky. Celestial dragons are dead. This place is about to become a battlefield. To be honest, Doflamingo's only thought now is to run. The further you run, the better. But after all, where can I run to? He was present when the celestial dragons died, and he could be picked out with just a little investigation, so now he is the only way to survive. Just stand with Lin Yan. I hope this man can bring miracles again. It can only be said that he is worthy of being the king of the underground world. Doflamingo's brains and courage are beyond comparison with ordinary people, and he made a decision immediately. Captain Lin is awesome. A very forced smile appeared on his face. Perhaps for the first time in his life, Doflamingo gave a thumbs up to someone with sincerity. This is a hero. Regardless of how he will survive, there is no doubt that Lin Yan has done what he wanted to do but never dared to do. This alone is enough to make Doflamingo admire him. Captain Lin, I'm sorry for the offense. Tetsolo also nodded solemnly. Like Doflamingo, he is also the emperor of the dark world. Doflamingo can think of. Of course he can think of it too. But unlike Doflamingo, who just wanted to seize the only way to survive with a little admiration, Tetsolo had a completely different idea. He was really convinced by the man in front of him. The kind of conviction that makes you sincerely convinced. As the Golden Emperor, Tesoro looks glamorous on the outside, but only he knows that he is also a poor man who is deeply poisoned by the celestial dragons. That is the past that I least want to face. At that time when I had nothing, I met the love of my life. The girl brought him salvation. But in the end, it was ruthlessly taken away by the celestial dragons. He was also demoted to slavery and spent several miserable years in Marie Joy's. Then he learned of the girl's death. From that day on, a man named Gilder Tetsolo lost everything. It wasn't until Marie Joy's was attacked that she managed to escape. Then step by step, he became today's Golden Emperor, a being above 10,000 people. Step by step, he became the person he once hated the most. Tetsolo knows all this. I just haven't been willing to face it. There is hatred, fear, and even more shame for myself. Just like the girl she once was. On the stage called Despair, she spread her voice over and over again, shouting the name of her lover heartbreakingly. That kind of life is no different from the Walking Dead. But today, Tetsolo saw the light. A man who regards the celestial dragons as nothing, just like the existence he once imagined, is standing in front of him at this moment. No matter what the cost, Tetsolo decided to chase. Even if the Golden City is his burial place in a few days. Captain Lin. I have a heartfelt request. I want to join your pirate group. Tetsolo said excitedly to Lin Yan. His tone was unusually trembling. You? Lin Yan looked at Tetsolo with some surprise. Then under the man's fervent eyes, he shook his head slightly. You are not worthy now, Lin Yan said. Tetsolo was speechless. He understood what Lin Yan meant. He had been in the dark for too long. The passion that once filled his heart has been corroded long ago, and now the man named Tetsolo is nothing more than a walking zombie. What do I need to do? But Tetsolo had no intention of giving up, and instead asked Lin Yan in a sincere tone. Lin Yan touched his chin and pondered for a moment, then slowly spoke to Tetsolo. The celestial dragons died here. You know what will happen next, so be it. If you can prove to me that you still have a will in your heart, I will agree with you. Request. Good. Tetsolo nodded without hesitation. He also knew that his death would not be a pity and he would definitely be the kind of person who would go to the 18th level of hell. A very simple truth. The wicked want redemption. The price is very expensive. Looking at Tetsolo, who had a look of death on his face, Lin Yan nodded imperceptibly. Honestly, he has always hated the so-called drama of the prodigal son returning home. Human life is like footprints. The road traveled is walked. It will not disappear just because of regrets. Whether it is a sin or a good deed, from the moment the ending is determined, it is destined to follow a person for life. To use life as a bargaining chip is to learn to face death. This is the price. If you enjoy torturing others, you must learn to make up for it, and this is also the price. The redemption of a wicked man. It's not something cheap. Tetsolo did not continue to plead with Lin Yan. There is absolutely no point in doing so. In the next battle, he needs to prove to the man in front of him that he still has backbone, otherwise Lin Yan will never accept him. It's time to pay for the mistakes of the past. There was a firm expression in Tetsolo's eyes, and he just turned around and left silently. As the Emperor of the Golden City, he must be fully prepared to face the next danger. Fu. Then Captain Lin, I'm going back to prepare. Doflamingo looked at Tezzolo's back and smiled. The wicked save themselves. Very good, but not suitable for me. Compared to this, he was still more concerned about whether he could survive in the future. So Doflamingo simply left. Next, he will mobilize all the strength of his family to prepare for the next war. There is no doubt that Doflamingo put everything on Lin Yan. Lin Yan has no problem with this. He just stood there calmly and watched the two people leave. Lin, where are we? Ain asked Lin Yan. There's nothing to worry about, right? They're just celestial dragons, that's all for me, but you guys are really not afraid at all? I'm your crewmate, aren't I? Ain asked with a smile. The other two girls also nodded. Isn't it natural for the crew to follow the captain to death? That's right. Then Lin Yan also laughed. To be honest, I was just here to make money. At best, it was just a transaction with Tezzolo. I didn't expect that it would turn out like this in the end. Should I say this is fate? As a user with the ability of the golden fruit, Tezzolo's strength is still good, but before that, he needs to pay off his previous mistakes and pay a sufficient price. How far can that man's consciousness reach? Lin Yan still expressed his expectation. If it can really meet expectations, Lin Yan doesn't mind recruiting one more strong person for the Whitebeard pirates. And for those bastard celestial dragons, Lin Yan was almost losing his patience. Let's go back and rest first. We have business to do next. Meanwhile, on the other side, Holy Land Marie Joy's, heart of the place. Well, the aftermath work is almost over here. You guys, don't you have any other comments? Five Elders, who was on crutches, spoke slowly. The expression on his face was extremely gloomy. This is no wonder. After all, a few weeks ago, the Buster Call, which gathered almost all the visible combat power of the world government, ended in failure. Even if they joined the fighting force of 2-4 emperors, they still failed. They're all useless trash. Five Elders has been in a state of flux recently. Fortunately, today, the follow-up is almost completed. No disagreement. The other five Elders nodded, and immediately, the five Elders holding the first-generation Ki Tetsu spoke angrily. It's just that there are bigger problems now. Let's not forget about Nine Snake Island. That man. And those strange creatures in the report. He stopped talking. The meaning is obviously self-explanatory. The dark shadow that has been hanging over them since more than 10 years ago seems to have appeared again. Although it is just suspicion at this stage, and because of their age, five Elders' memory is also a bit bad, and they have almost forgotten what the man looked like back then. But as said before, just a suspicion is enough for them. There are also protests from the celestial dragons. The other five Elders also sighed. After they realized that Lin Yan might be that terrifying existence, they immediately issued orders to all celestial dragons without hesitation. You must know that the one who really dares to kill celestial dragons. What happened in Marie Joy's more than 10 years ago? But it took them a lot of effort to suppress it. Never happen again. But unfortunately, the celestial dragons did not understand how they, as world nobles who had always been arrogant and domineering, could agree to such a cowardly order. Compared with the failure of Buster Call, this is the biggest headache for five Elders. For a moment, the five people were speechless. No one can come up with a good solution. That's all, it's just a protest after all. As long as what happened back then won't happen again, everything we do will be worthwhile. The five Elders who lived on crutches spoke quietly. However, before he could finish speaking, the door of the conference room was kicked open. How unbecoming is it to be in such a hurry? The five Elders looked angry and looked over. However, the man who came in was also sweating profusely. I didn't mean it, that. There are celestial dragons dead. The man's tone was trembling. He was obviously frightened, and his whole back was covered in cold sweat. It took 8 lifetimes of bad luck to encounter this kind of thing. To be honest, I was just standing guard every day. Do you want to be so awesome? The man who came to report was almost in tears. Hearing this, the five Elders were stunned for a moment, then suddenly stood up. What did you say? What happened? Tell me in detail. Everyone lost their cool. Why did he die again? How many days has it been quiet? The five Elders were so excited that they could only calm down and decided to hear who dared to do such a thing. Killed. Must kill. Suddenly, the eyes of the five Elders were full of murderous intent. The majesty of the world's nobles must not be desecrated. However, when they heard the name spoken by the man, their eyes went dark. One of the five Elders didn't even take a breath, rolled his eyes and fell back. It's just that no one was there to help him at this time. The five Elders feel like their hands are shaking. Yes, it's Lin Yan, captain of the 17th Division of the Whitebeard Pirates. Damn it. Why is it this plague god again? I'm begging you, why don't you just stop for a while? This guy is simply a plague. Except for 1-5 elders who fainted due to anger, the remaining 4-5 elders were all pale and for a moment, they didn't know what to say. Another celestial dragons are dead, and the murderer is still the same person. This is simply putting the face of the world government on the ground. To be honest, if it were another person to do this kind of thing, I'm afraid it would have been broken into 17 or 18 pieces, and it would be impossible to put it back together. But if it's Lin Yan, to put it bluntly, 5 elders is really in trouble. After all, Lin Yan is incredibly strong, and as we all know, if you can't beat him, don't be reasonable. That's just asking for humiliation. Everyone, what are your opinions? One of the 5 elders thought for a long time, and finally sighed slowly and asked the others. Of course we want to crusade. The other 5 elders answered without hesitation, but in the middle of the sentence, he sighed deeply. We have to do this, don't we? Hearing this, everyone fell silent again. Yes, they had reasons to do this. You must know that this time it was the death of celestial dragons, and it was impossible to hide it like they did more than 10 years ago. Because this happened in Golden City, the world's largest entertainment city. 3 religions and 9 streams gathered in that city, and the 5 elders could even imagine that at this moment, the news of the death of celestial dragons must have spread to the entire world like a virus. If you don't fight back with extremely strong means, then the prestige of the entire world government and the world's nobility will suffer a huge blow. This is absolutely unacceptable. In that case, everyone, please send troops. Even the chessboard leader had to make a choice. The 5 elders looked helpless, but in the end they had to take action. But we failed last time, who do we want this time? We might as well use the power of the whole world. After all, we are the world government. There are as many people as possible who are willing to sacrifice their lives, right? Upon hearing this, the 5 elders exchanged glances and nodded immediately. Seconded. At the same time, on the other side, the entertainment city Golden City. Lin, is it really okay for you to be so nervous? Ain had a look of helplessness on his pretty face, and couldn't help but reach out and poke Lin Yan's cheek, looking at Lin Yan who was lying like a salted fish at this moment. An angry and funny expression appeared on her pretty face. By the way, the time now is around 8 o'clock in the morning. Ain came to wake up Lin Yan. And by the way, the reason why I got this opportunity was the result of a rock-paper-scissors showdown between 3 girls. However, what time is it? As we all know, how can humans get up before noon? Let me sleep for a while. Faced with Ain's angry and funny expression, Lin Yan just yawned lazily and then made a casual quibble. The eyes that were closed looked like they were not going to open. As said before, as a very normal human being who follows the most basic biological clock, it is quite reasonable for me to sleep until noon, right? Anya expressed a relapse in mood. Speaking of his own captain, everything is really good. The only thing that makes people dissatisfied is that this guy is usually extremely lazy and has no idea why he is so powerful. And is it really okay for you to be like this now? Thinking about it, Ain couldn't help but slap Lin Yan angrily. You are the only one who doesn't feel nervous. You know, the Golden City is in chaos now, and we should also be facing revenge next, right? Ain said this helplessly. Have to say, Tezzolo's reaction is still very fast and his execution is quite good. First, they immediately blocked all information from the Golden City to the outside world, and then began to send away all guests from the Golden City. Those who are willing to help stay, and those who are unwilling can go back and forth from wherever they are. Tezzolo probably knew that too. These pirates who stay in the Golden City and do whatever they want will be the most unstable factor in the future. Even the 3 girls were busy. After all, compared to the prosperous Don Quixote family, although Tezzolo is very rich, in terms of training violent institutions, it is more than 1 level behind Doflamingo. The Golden Emperor who rules the entire Golden City majestically. Is it okay if you only have 3 reliable combatants? A short man jumping around, a big man with somewhat strange interests, and a lucky girl. To be fair, if it weren't for his own strength, the Golden City may have been destroyed long ago. Don't be so impatient, right? After all, it's not like we haven't faced it before. I believe some people in the world government will learn to behave better this time, right? Seeing the worried expression on Ain's pretty face, Lin Yan stopped sleeping and comforted him with a smile. One thing to say. Do you think the world government still dares to show its strength in front of you? The 5 elders are not fools. After the failure of the previous Buster Call, they definitely know that they have large-scale means of destruction in their hands. So if nothing unexpected happens, This time the miscellaneous fish had no chance to appear at all. And if you think about it from this point of view, Lin Yan can probably imagine what 5 elders will do next. If only it was like what you said. Hearing Lin Yan's comfort, Ain put a smile on his pretty face again, and then he spoke to Lin Yan as if he suddenly thought of something. By the way, that guy from Tetzolo came here early in the morning and said he had something to tell you? Tetzolo. Lin Yan tilted his head when he heard this. Immediately, a rather interested smile appeared on his face. Okay, where are they now? After stretching lazily, Lin Yan finally sat up and asked Ain. I'll take you there. Seeing Lin Yan finally getting up, Ain couldn't help but reveal a happy smile on her pretty face, and then spoke without hesitation. Of course, Lin Yan has no objection to this. There was naturally nothing to say about what happened after that. Under the leadership of Ain, the two quickly arrived at Tetzolo's location. At this moment, the Emperor of the Golden City was asking for some of his inventory. Seeing Ain coming in with Lin Yan, Tetzolo immediately put down his work and smiled at the two of them. You two, how was your rest yesterday? Tetzolo smiled at the two of them. He didn't look like he was tit for tat at all. Instead, he looked like a kind and good old man. This is also a matter of course. After what happened yesterday, Tetzolo has almost regarded Lin Yan in front of him as his idol. For him, who also hates the celestial dragons very much but cannot resist out of fear. One can imagine what kind of shock Lin Yan's actions yesterday will bring. For Tetzolo, that could be called redemption. The man in front of me actually dared to take action against the world government without hesitation, just to protect the women around him. If only I had had such courage and strength back then. Thinking about it, the expression on Tetzolo's face became a little complicated. Lin Yan's eyes when looking at Tetzolo were also a little complicated. Of course, not because of Tetzolo himself, but because I'm so flashy. Seeing the shining golden look behind Tetzolo, even Lin Yan couldn't help but narrow his eyes slightly. So dazzling. As mentioned before, Tetzolo is taking inventory. So what is the inventory? There is no doubt that it is all gold. This is also a matter of course. After all, as a user with the ability of the golden gold fruit, Tetzoro's ability is to control gold to fight. In other words, the amount of gold directly affects his combat effectiveness. As perhaps the richest man in the world, in order to prepare for the upcoming battle, Tetzolo must of course confirm the gold reserves in his hands. Good guy, is this the happiness of rich people? Lin Yan expressed mixed emotions. What an oversized dog owner. After all, there is a saying that if calculated purely based on gold reserves, the wealth held by Tetzoro in front of him even surpasses the celestial dragon's treasure house that he robbed more than 10 years ago. 1/5 of Pele in the world is really not just blown away. Of course, it's just that gold has surpassed it. As for other precious items, such as devil fruit and the like, Tetzoro is still far inferior to celestial dragons. Master Lin Yan. What's wrong? Noticing that Lin Yan's expression looked a little strange, Tetzolo pondered for a moment and asked Lin Yan curiously. Nothing. Lin Yan recovered quickly and shook his head with a smile. Then he mentally thought about how to get rid of the pile of gold in front of him. Although with his own strength, Tetzolo has no ability to resist even if he attacks him directly. But as said before, although Lin Yan doesn't think he is a good person, he still can't do such dirty things. After all, he is not one of those pirates who have no bottom line. Then things became very simple. He needs to offer a price that Tetzolo cannot refuse. Then let the other party willingly give away all the wealth. Then here comes the problem. Is there a price Tetzolo can't refuse? There is a saying, and it is true. As if thinking of something, Lin Yan raised the corners of his mouth and smiled, and then suddenly pretended to have just noticed it and pointed at Tetzolo's hands. Speaking of which, I wanted to ask before. You are obviously wearing gold rings on both hands, but why are you not wearing them on your ring finger? Huh. That's right. Ain, who was a little confused on the other side, followed Lin Yan's instructions and looked over, and couldn't help but let out a sigh. Just like Lin Yan said, only the ring finger on Tetzolo's hands lacked a ring. And if I remember correctly, it should be. Where is the wedding ring? Thinking about it, Ain looked at Tetzoro in a strange way. After all, he was the famous Golden Emperor, and there wasn't even a woman by his side. Tetzolo suddenly fell silent. After a while, he sighed softly. That position is reserved for someone who will never come back. She is also my true love. Tetzolo said in a low tone. Even though he has made the decision to follow the man in front of him, to this day, Tetzolo is still somewhat unwilling to face his tragic past. I see, is this still a love story? Do you mind telling me? Anyway, it's still some time before the battle, and maybe I have some solution. Lin Yan, as if he had known this for a long time, nodded to Tetsulo with a smile. It doesn't matter. Tetsulo couldn't help but smile bitterly. To be honest, if anyone else had said such things to him, Tetsulo would have turned against him long ago. After all, that was the past he least wanted to face. But if it were the man in front of me, it doesn't hurt to talk. And the solution Lin Yan said also touched Tetsulo's nerves. Even though I knew it was absolutely impossible. But that's the thing about humans. Even though they are in despair, they can't help but hope, even though they may know it better. Hopefully it will be followed by deeper despair. The reason why human beings are human is precisely because of this instinct to constantly pursue hope, isn't it? Thinking. Tetsulo's eyes became determined. The man reached out and touched his chin, as if he was carefully considering his words. Lin Yan and Ain did not mean to disturb him. It wasn't until a long while that Tetsulo slowly spoke. Actually, you two may not know that I was actually born in a very poor family. At that time, I could be said to be useless. If there is anything praiseworthy about me, perhaps it is my singing voice. Used. Tetsulo had a wry smile on his face. When I was very young, my dream was to become a singer, but even my mother hated my singing. Soon, I was kicked out of the house. Having said this, Tetsulo's tone paused slightly. Then under the somewhat surprised gazes of the two people, a very nostalgic and very sad smile appeared on the man's face. An expression like this. It seemed a little out of place to appear on the Golden Emperor, who was known for his cruelty and flamboyance. But neither Ain nor Lin Yan had any intention of interrupting. So Tetsulo continued. And at that time, I was at a loss when it came to life, and I met a girl in the birdcage at the theater. Her name is Stella, is the love of my life. No doubt. A man named Gilder Tetsulo has a very tragic past. In Tetsulo's slow narration, Lin Yan and Ain also learned the whole story. It probably started more than 10 years ago. At that time, Tetsulo, who had just been kicked out of his home, was disheartened and had no idea where his life was headed. Then, almost without any surprise, he followed the path of his father's generation. I made a bunch of bad friends. Then he became addicted to gambling. And when he lost all his money, those so-called friends did not hesitate to punch and kick him. That time Tetsulo tried his best to barely escape. With bruises all over his body, he walked to the theater door in a daze, where he met a beautiful girl. The girl's name is Stella. Two equally desperate people looked at each other, then leaned on opposite ends of the birdcage and began to pour out their misfortunes to each other. And since that day, Tetsulo's life has been somewhat redeemed. Girls are the first to praise their dreams. He is also the first person who does not look down upon himself in any way. It was also from that day that Tetsulo's life changed for the first time and he had a goal to strive for. Stella is a slave to the theater. According to the market conditions at the time, if Tetsulo wanted to redeem Stella, he would need at least 500,000 belly. Human slaves are the least valuable things. The numbers are not small, but they are by no means out of reach. Tetsulo still remembered that day when he spoke impassionedly of his ideals to the girl, and then promised that he would give her freedom. For the next period of time, Tetsulo worked hard. Almost sleepless, just to bring back the love of my life. Yes, there is no doubt that the two love each other. However, Tetsulo was a step too late after all, even if he worked around the clock and squeezed all his time. Just when Tetsulo was about to collect 500,000 ransoms, despair sets in. The ugly celestial dragons bought Stella before he could. Just 500,000 belly. It was nothing to mention to the celestial dragons who ruled the entire world. Tetsulo was so angry that he even drew his sword against the celestial dragons. But in the end it was just a useless move. Stella knew what she was about to face, so in the end, she just showed a sad and happy smile on her face. This was Tetsulo's last memory of his beloved. What happens next can probably be predicted. Because Tetsulo dared to resist the celestial dragons, he was stamped with the hoof of the celestial dragons on his back and became a slave, beginning his miserable life. Life was difficult for slaves. But as long as he thinks that Stella is still waiting for him somewhere, Tetsulo is full of power. As mentioned before, human beings are constantly pursuing small hopes. Then shortly after, he learned of Stella's death. Seeing the ugly celestial dragons laughing in front of him, trampling on his only remaining hope, that day, the man named Gilder Tetsulo died. A few years later, Fisher Tiger, a fishman hero, freed the slaves and Tetsulo was freed. With a deep hatred for the celestial dragons, he secretly gathered a group of people and accidentally learned that the Don Quixote family of Doflamingo was auctioning the golden fruit. Tetsulo pulled out all the stops, setting fire to the entire city, and emerged victorious. Then step by step, he became the current Golden Emperor. Because of his tragic past, He used all means to collect wealth and gradually became the man who now owns 1/5 of the world's Baileys. He became the rich and powerful person he once hated the most. Until Lin Yan's arrival. After slowly talking about the first half of his life in a low tone, Tetsulo sighed softly. Maybe I understood it from that day on. Guys without money will get nothing after all. They don't deserve love or dreams. Money is everything. Tetsulo's tone seemed a little low. This is also a matter of course. For Tetsulo, revisiting his past is tantamount to opening up scars. Although he has become the aloof Golden Emperor. But every time he touched his already empty heart, Tetsulo would still feel a dull pain. It turns out, as mentioned before, girls may be emotional. After hearing Tetsuro's tragic past, even Ain couldn't help but show sympathy in his eyes. Such a story is really harmful to her as a girl. Ain subconsciously pinched the corner of Lin Yan's clothes. Lin Yan touched Ain's head with some pity, and then looked at Tetsulo in front of him, his eyes slowly becoming sharp. Tetsulo, you made 2 mistakes. Lin Yan spoke softly. Tetsulo was stunned for a moment, then smiled bitterly. Appreciate further details. The first is weakness. You were too weak back then and didn't even have the ability to resist. Weakness is the root cause of all this, isn't it? Lin Yan said softly. After all, the weak suffer despair, which is to be expected in this sea of injustice. Tetsulo was speechless and nodded slightly after being silent for a while. What about the second mistake? Well, after listening to your story, I understand your paranoia about money, but Tetsulo, money is a false thing after all. As he spoke, Lin Yan's tone paused slightly. Under Ain's somewhat changed expression, he suddenly pulled out the holy sword and pointed it straight at the confused Tetsulo in front of him. Power is everything. The dazzling holy sword shone with golden light, and its shock was far greater than the countless gold behind Tetsuo. The sword itself is a miracle in power. Then facing Tetsuo, whose expression began to change, Lin Yan chuckled and spoke. Don't be so nervous. I won't do anything to you. After all, I think I'm not the same person as those disgusting celestial dragons. After all, I still hate taking things by force. As he spoke, Lin Yan's tone paused slightly. Gilder Tetsuo, would you like to make a deal with me? Trade? Tetsuo asked with some confusion. Lin Yan nodded slightly. When this war is over and you give all your current wealth, you will transform from an emperor who owns 1/5 of the world's Baileys to a poor man again. Lin Yan looked directly at Tetsuo in front of him with sharp eyes and spoke every word. Then relative. I will give you a chance to save Stella's life. Tetsuo was stunned. Looking at Lin Yan, who was pointing his holy sword at him with sharp eyes, he didn't know what to say for a moment. No matter who, there will always be difficult moments. For Tetsuo, the biggest regret in his life is that he once missed the love of his life. If all this could be undone, Tetsuo is even willing to sell his soul. Not to mention Pele, who is only 1/5 of the world. However, is this really possible? His beloved had died in Marie Joy's. This was a fact that had been confirmed, and even Tetsuo, who had lost his mind, could not believe it. But, seeing Lin Yan's confident eyes in front of him, Tetsuo subconsciously stretched out his hand. Seeing the man in front of him looking in disbelief, Lin Yan chuckled. What? Don't you like gambling the most? After losing Stella, you don't even dare to gamble anymore. Tetsuo gritted his teeth. Captain Lin, I need this opportunity. I am willing to pay any price for it. Tetsuo finally made up his mind. Lin Yan showed a hearty smile on his face. Very good. As he spoke, Lin Yan waved his hand, causing the space to fluctuate. Not long after, a strange-looking train appeared in front of several people. This is... Tetsuo stared closely at the train in front of him, and his intuition told him that this strange train was related to what he was going to do next. And that's exactly what happened. Seeing the time train appearing, Lin Yan smiled at Tetsuo. Next, I will use almost 1/10 of the treasure behind you to fill it with energy. After boarding this train, you will get another chance to save Stella. As he spoke, Lin Yan's tone paused slightly. Just remember, you only have about a week to save her, and then you have to try not to cause any big trouble, do you understand? I see. Tetsuo nodded solemnly. Although he didn't know what Lin Yan was going to do, since he had decided to make a big gamble, Tetsuo, as the Golden Emperor, would not have any hesitation. Moreover, his intuition told him that this might be his only chance. Tetsuo's face was terrifyingly serious. After thinking for a while, he suddenly lowered his head to Lin Yan. Captain Lin, in order to ensure success, I need to bring a certain share of gold with me, so I can only borrow some of your gold first. Tetsuo said in a sincere tone. He is a user with the ability of the golden fruit. If there is no gold to drive it, his strength will be reduced to 10%, so in order to ensure success, he needs gold. Between words, it was as if the gold behind him was regarded as Lin Yan's property. As said before, in order to save his true love, Tetsolo is willing to pay any price. The arrogant Golden Emperor chose to lower his head and asked Lin Yan to borrow money. Seeing this scene, Lin Yan nodded with satisfaction. The transaction is not completed yet, they are still yours now. Thank you. Tetsolo nodded with some emotion, then without hesitation took about a ton of gold and stored it in his body, and then stepped into the train. Lin Yan also opened his hands at the same time. The train of time sent out a special wave. Just like when Tesoro activated the power of the golden fruit, a huge amount of gold turned into liquid and filled the fuel tank of the train. Let's go. Feeling that it was almost done, Lin Yan showed a hearty smile on his face, and the engine of the time train roared, hit the wall, and then disappeared without a trace. Tetsolo, who was in the train, only felt the world spinning. Although he didn't know what happened, he could only try his best to endure the nausea and stay awake. Then start at some point. The surrounding carriages disappeared and gradually turned into a blurry substance whose specific shape was unclear. Tetsolo soon couldn't distinguish between east, west and north. At the same moment, in a small town about 10 years ago. Bang. There was a sudden fluctuation in the sky, and then a man fell from the air and hit the ground with a bang. Vomit. After finally seeing the ground, Tetsolo finally couldn't bear it anymore and lay down on the ground and vomited loudly. Pedestrians passing by looked at him with disgust. It can be said that he looked quite embarrassed. After vomiting for a while, Tetsolo managed to recover. He sighed exhausted both physically and mentally, and found a place to lie down, staring at the sky blankly. The sky. You are so blue. Tetsolo had some doubts about life. After a while, he turned his eyes to the town in front of him, and his eyes were startled. This? As this? Tetsolo looked at everything in front of him in disbelief. Familiar houses, familiar streets. How could he forget it now? Because of the extreme shock and excitement, Tetsolo's body began to tremble slightly. And then in the next moment, the voice that had been out of reach for more than 10 years, like a dream, came to my ears. Do you need help? At the same time, the Golden City. Lin. Do you think he can really succeed? Walking side by side with Lin Yan on the street, Ain hesitated for a long time, and finally couldn't help turning his head to look at Lin Yan beside him and asked. Ain had no idea what Lin Yan had done, whether it's that strange train or the strange promise. But as a caring girl, Ain never explores Lin Yan's secrets too much. And at this moment, she cares more about another thing than this. Tetsolo. Does it really have a chance of success? As said before, girls are very emotional creatures. Tesoro's poignant love story moved Ain, so he couldn't help but look forward to it, believing that even Momosagi or Hancock would be here. Probably the same reaction as Ain. However, Lin Yan just rolled his eyes. Woman. What are you worried about? Tesoro was the Golden Emperor, a powerful fruit user, and even brought more than a ton of gold with him. Isn't it easy and enjoyable to deal with a theater owner? As for how to settle Stella in 1 week, does this still need to be considered? Tetsolo is not a waste. One thing to say is, if he can't even do this, he might as well stop being the Dark Emperor and go home to farm. After thinking about it, Lin Yan spoke calmly. Don't worry, if this doesn't work, he might as well just find a piece of tofu and hit him to death to save himself the embarrassment. No matter what world you are in, no matter what era you are in, the strong always have the right to speak. This is the eternal truth. In Lin Yan's opinion, Tetsolo's previous loss was just because of his weakness. Putting aside his personal feelings, this was the only reason. And now Tetsolo. Defying the celestial dragons might not be close. But it's just a theater owner. So from the beginning, Lin Yan never thought about whether Tetsolo could succeed. He was more concerned about the battle ahead than this. Calculating the time, it should be almost time for those guys to come here to cause trouble, right? Lin Yan looked at the deserted street in front of him and couldn't help but smile. Because of Tetsolo's previous evacuation order. Plus there are celestial dragons dead in the city. Today, in the Golden City, only the gorgeous streets and various giant buildings are left, and the pedestrians on the road have completely disappeared. Especially the pirates who come here for fun. There was no need for Tetsolo to inform him. He only wished that his parents had not given him 2 extra legs so that he could run faster than anyone else. It can be said to be very real. So in view of this, people like myself can be said to be fighting alone in a literal sense. But Lin Yan is not afraid at all. After the last Buster call, even those guys from the world government should understand that sending a large scale of trash fish is completely useless. Not even cannon fodder, and might even leak the news. If not, there is a high probability that the Whitebeard pirates will join the battlefield like last time. So this is it. The next actions of 5 elders can probably be predicted. Send out a handful of extremely powerful men, and then carry out the so-called beheading operation. Not surprisingly, what we need to face this time are some of the top experts in the world. Even Lin Yan felt a little excited about this, and even the smile on his face became crazy. Ain, who was beside him, naturally noticed Lin Yan's current expression and could only sigh helplessly. I hope it can be resolved smoothly, so naturally there is nothing to say about what happens next. Because the entire Golden City has been deserted, only some of Tezzolo's subordinates are left to maintain the most basic operations of the city. Lin Yan and the 3 girls simply recharged their batteries. In this way, time came unknowingly a week later. Aren't those 2 guys Tezzolo and Doflamingo back yet? On this day, Lin Yan was sitting in a luxurious suite in Golden City as usual, and asked Tezzolo's men in front of him. By the way, this subordinate is the girl who we had a relationship with before and who can control luck to a certain extent. No news yet. The girl shook her head cautiously. Putting aside the Doflamingo guy, recently, even their immediate boss, the Golden Emperor, mysteriously disappeared. No one dared to say anything or ask anything. We can only carefully serve Lin Yan and his team like uncles. After all, Lin Yan's strength is obvious to all, and now that the Golden Emperor is gone, even if they have the guts, they would not dare to provoke him. He didn't pay attention to the cautious attitude of the girl in front of him. Lin Yan shook his head and was about to say something, but at this moment, the door was suddenly pushed open. Didn't I tell you not to disturb me at this time? Before Lin Yan could react, the girl's expression suddenly became angry, and she immediately turned her head and shouted at the attendant who opened the door. No, no, sir. Several marine warships suddenly appeared outside the Golden City. Seeing his boss getting angry, the attendant reported in a panic. What did you say? How could it be so fast? Hearing this, the girl's expression was immediately startled, and then she quickly looked at Lin Yan, with a hint of pleading in her eyes. It's obvious. Now that Tezzolo is gone, trying to fight marine with just them is like hurling an egg against a stone. Something you can rely on now. There was only the adult in front of me. Lin Yan had no intention of hesitating. After hearing this, he quickly stood up from his chair, with a hint of fighting intent in his eyes. It seems we can't wait any longer. Now go call Hancock and the others. I'll go out first to see who's coming this time. Lin Yan said this. As he spoke, he raised his feet and walked towards the door. Everyone had no objections. They nodded and followed Lin Yan's steps, as if Lin Yan was the controller of this Golden City. Not long after, everyone left one after another, calling others to prepare. Lin Yan, on the other hand, arrived at the port of this Golden City alone. It was exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The sun was shining and cloudless, and the wide harbor reflected the calm sea. But on the not-so-distant sea level, several warships had already appeared there. It can be said to be very disgraceful. Lin Yan stood at the port with a calm face and no intention of taking the initiative to attack. He just stood there calmly and waited. Even he was a little curious as to what kind of lineup 5 elders would send to deal with him this time. Lin Yan didn't have to wait long. Soon, several warships parked several hundred meters away from the Golden City. Then there was a loud bang. A figure suddenly jumped out of the warship. Relying on his incredible physical fitness and powerful armament hockey, this man actually crossed a distance of several hundred meters in a single jump. Landing steadily in front of Lin Yan. Lin Yan couldn't help but narrow his eyes, looking at the iron tower-like man in front of him with interest. The visitor is none other than someone else. It was the then Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral Garp. It is said that since a long time ago, he has refused several orders to be promoted to admiral, and claimed that as long as he has enough power to exercise justice, he will ignore everything else. He is also a top armament hockey powerhouse. He is different from Akainu, a guy who talks about justice and morality, but is actually just a despicable and shameless person. Garp in front of you. It can be said that it represents Marine's justice to a certain extent. Hardy and heroic, he is a man who can almost rival Whitebeard. Garp landed on the port and made a big hole in the ground. He looked up at Lin Yan, who was looking at him with his arms folded across from him. After a moment, a hearty smile appeared on his face. I should say a long time no see at this time, right? With that said, Garp reached into his arms, took out a piece of senbei that he would carry with him wherever he went, and smiled at Lin Yan. Want some? This kind of attitude is more like visiting an old friend than coming to start a war. But it's also very Garp style. Lin Yan also burst into laughter. Looking at Garp in front of him, without much hesitation, Lin Yan readily reached out and took the senbei handed over by Garp and took a bite. Warriors like Garp, it is impossible to use any despicable means. Besides, the senbei tastes very good. No wonder Garp carries it with him wherever he goes. How's it going? This is my proud snack. Seeing that Lin Yan was very satisfied with the taste of senbei, Garp laughed again. But after laughing, the expression on the man's face became a little serious. We are enemies now, aren't you afraid that I will poison you inside? Garp looked at Lin Yan with interest and asked. However, Lin Yan just shrugged indifferently. If you even do such a thing, you Garp will be thrown into a coffin in disgrace. So brave. I like. Hearing Lin Yan's answer, Garp was stunned for a moment, and then couldn't help laughing again. I wish you were Marine. Garp shook his head and sighed. Even if the two of them are on the enemy's side at this moment, Garp doesn't have any ill feelings towards Lin Yan in front of him. As said before, many disputes on this ocean are just different positions in the final analysis. There are only a handful of extremely evil people like Doflamingo. Even if the Lin Yan in front of him caused Marine to lose face several times. Regardless of his position, Garp himself greatly admires Lin Yan's courage in daring to enter the summit war alone and turn the tide on his own. Now Garp just regrets that people like Lin Yan are not Marine. Otherwise, the pirates of this era wouldn't be so rampant, right? Although it doesn't make much sense to say this now. What needs to be done must be done well, but before that, Garp still intends to make one final confirmation. Did you kill the celestial dragons? Looking at Lin Yan, who was still standing opposite him in a leisurely manner, Garp narrowed his eyes slightly and asked, his expression indescribably serious. Lin Yan's answer here will determine the direction of things next. Lin Yan's answer was naturally decided long ago. You are weak but you are not afraid of the strong, and you are disgusting. Do you want to keep those bastards for the new year? This is a straightforward admission, and there is no regret at all. After hearing this, Garp's face suddenly darkened. Without a doubt, this is the worst answer. If there was still a little room for mediation before, then when Lin Yan's answer came down, it would be impossible not to fight today. Then in that case, I must abide by my duties as a Marine. Garp spoke with a serious expression. As he spoke, he reached out and took off the cloak of justice from his back. At the same time, powerful armament hockey began to gather in his hands, which was no less impressive than Zephyr, known as Black Arm. This is the world's top armament hockey. As a Marine Vice Admiral, Garp has no dazzling fruit abilities and is just an ordinary human being. He is by no means a race with a naturally powerful body like mermaids. But why is he called a Marine hero? In addition to his achievements in hunting down the Pirate King Roger. The answer lies in these iron fists. The purer it is, the more powerful it is. This extremely powerful armament hockey is everything to Garp. Lin Yan, the captain of the 17th Division of the Whitebeard Pirates, was personally killed by me, Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral Garp, for his crime of killing the celestial dragons. Garp shouted loudly. The huge voice spread throughout the sea. And Lin Yan's eyes also began to erupt with strong fighting spirit. If you can do it, you might as well try it. Without using any treasures or abilities, Lin Yan just showed a crazy smile at the corner of his mouth, and then like Garp, attached armament hockey to both fists. The world's top armament hockey cultivation level? He has wanted to try it for a long time. Boom. So the next second, the two people's iron fists hammered together, and huge airwaves swept around like a Category 10 typhoon. In just a moment, the originally good port was destroyed to pieces. One can only imagine how violent these two people were. Garp's expression changed. How could you? Garp's eyes widened in disbelief as he watched Lin Yan collide with his fists without losing any strength at all. Even if his old friend wants to take on his full strength, he can't do it without using his fruit ability, right? The powerful devil fruit can quickly give a person strong fighting power. But there is no shortcut to the training of armament hockey. Just persevere. Talent and hard work are indispensable. Garp is the ultimate armament hockey, but Garp has spent half his life, and in terms of talent, Garp considers himself to be the best. But how old is Lin Yan in front of her? We're just getting started, don't be so shocked. However, facing Garp, whose expression changed greatly, Lin Yan smiled slightly. The next moment, Garp's face suddenly changed and he disappeared in an instant. In the flash of lightning, Garp could only react and protect his heart, and then he was thrown out by Lin Yan with a set of combos at an extremely fast speed. The body was soaring in midair and the expression on Garp's face looked a little confused. Who I am? Where am I? What just happened? At that moment, Garp couldn't see Lin Yan's movements clearly, and felt like he was flying out for no apparent reason. There is only one reason for this phenomenon. There is an almost complete gap in the fighting skills between the two. Garp remembers that when he was teaching new Marines a lesson, they would always have such confused expressions on their faces. But is this really possible? A young man in his 20s. It doesn't matter that armament hockey is no worse than me. Are your fighting skills still inferior to your own? Damn. What kind of monster is this? Garp expressed his confusion. Until he was about to hit the ground, he relied on his strong physical instincts to keep from falling. But at this moment, the way Garp looked at Lin Yan had completely changed. He silently looked at the bruises on his arms. Garp was silent for a moment. Immediately, the look he looked at Lin Yan was like looking at a monster in human skin. What did you grow up on? Garp said it was completely unacceptable. In this world, how could such an outrageous monster exist? If Garp hadn't known that he had used all his strength just now, and at least he could compete with Lin Yan in simple armament hockey, otherwise he would have really doubted his life. I wonder if armament hockey, who is in his body, has been trained to be a dog. Although I am already doubting what life is like. However, Lin Yan just rolled his eyes. If you can't speak, don't speak. Too lazy to respond to Garp's amused look, Lin Yan just stretched out a hand and gave Garp a tick. Continue? Come again. Garp nodded without hesitation and rushed forward again. Then. There's no after that. The plot was exactly the same as before. Garp couldn't resist Lin Yan's fighting skills that were comparable to those of a mythical hero. Within a few seconds, he performed a trapeze again. Although the armament hockey of the two can touch each other. But in terms of pure fighting skills, facing Lin Yan who arrived in the divine realm, Garp really couldn't do much to resist. Speak openly and honestly. That is no longer the level that humans should have. Instead, warriors who have single-handedly created great deeds comparable to those of the gods are qualified to perform miracles. It's natural that Garp can't beat him. What are you still looking at? Both times, he flew out without seeing anything clearly. Garp finally realized the huge gap between himself and Lin Yan, and shouted with a heavy face. You weak souls, is it fun to see Laozi embarrassed? Haha. Garp, we don't mean to laugh at you. Didn't you say you wanted to fight one-on-one before? As Garp's words fell, a burst of hearty laughter came from the distant warship. Immediately, an old man landed on the port just like Garp before. Wearing marine uniform. But it did not appear in the previous summit war. Looking at the old man in front of him, Lin Yan couldn't help but narrow his eyes slightly, and then he seemed to remember something and grinned. Kong. Are you still alive? When people get old, they have to live a little longer. Kong smiled and nodded. Maybe not many pirates in this era have heard of his name. But in Whitebeard's generation, his name is known to everyone. Kong. He is the remnant of the previous era like Whitebeard, the former marine marshal. Seeing Lin Yan in front of him, he could actually recognize himself. Kong touched his chin proudly. Immediately, the look in Lin Yan's eyes became serious. My little friend, how about surrendering here? With your intelligence, you should be able to realize what will happen next, right? Kong raised his hand to stop Garp who was about to speak. His eyes looked at Lin Yan in front of him with some amusement. As a former marine marshal, he is closer to the center of power than anyone here. At the same time, it is easier to figure out a little bit of Five Elders' thoughts. Kong could tell that the attitude of the Five Elders towards this matter was still a bit subtle, as if they were not very willing to be enemies with Lin Yan in front of them. The specific reason is not clear to Kong, but if it were true, the problem would become much simpler. As long as Lin Yan is willing to take a step back here. It's best to surrender to investigation. The worst is to deny that he had anything to do with the death of the celestial dragons. The subsequent processing will be extremely smooth. It's nothing more than an announcement from the world government to clarify that misunderstanding, and then find a few scapegoats. Making up a story couldn't be easier. Personally, Kong is not willing to fight to the death with Lin Yan here. It's not that he's afraid of death. What's there to be afraid of when people are half buried in the ground? However, after several consecutive battles, Marines suffered huge losses and needed to recuperate. Moreover, the aura and amazing combat power displayed by Lin Yan in front of him were the only ones he had ever seen in his life. He casually beat Garp to the point where he was almost helpless. You can imagine what a terrifying monster the junior in front of you is. It is said to be the pinnacle of martial arts. It's not an exaggeration at all. Not to mention those strange abilities in intelligence. Surrender? However, facing Kong's sincere surrender, Lin Yan couldn't help but sneer. Should I take a step back? What about that disgusting celestial dragons who said he looked down on my wife before? I'm someone who doesn't want to lose face. Just a celestial dragons, just die, no need to worry about it. I will never take a step back and let you go today. I won't give you this face. Thinking of this, the smile on Lin Yan's face was full of ridicule, and he narrowed his eyes and looked at Garp and Kong opposite. Just you two? No, it's not just the two of us. Seeing Lin Yan's sneer expression, the experienced Kong immediately knew that this matter would be difficult to handle today, and immediately shook his head seriously. And as the atmosphere gradually became tense, one after another, figures also appeared behind the two of them. It's really scary, Admiral of Headquarters, Kizaru Perusalino. What are you talking about if you don't have all this? When will the fight start? Brother Jack, don't be so grumpy, quick victory. Beasts Pirates 3 Major Disasters. Captain Lin, I'm sorry. Although we have no grievances, this is what my mother meant. I don't care. Big Mom Pirates 3 Desert Stars. There are also more than a dozen strong people in the CP department who are silent. Not only the power of Marine and World Government, but also the power of the 4 Emperors also appeared here, just like the previous Buster Call. And that's not all. From a distance, even Kaido and Charlotte Linlin appeared on the ship. The former looked at Lin Yan with interest. The latter, on the other hand, was staring at this place with anger. Such a luxurious lineup gathered the famous strong men in this sea. Such a lineup is simply luxurious. I'm afraid it's more than enough to destroy a country, right? However, at this moment, they gathered here just to attack Lin Yan, who was standing opposite. You really think highly of me? Looking at this extremely luxurious lineup in front of me. Even Lin Yan couldn't help but smile. I didn't expect that I would have such a great reputation to this day. But having said that, Lin Yan is not afraid at all. There was no fear on his face. Lin Yan narrowed his eyes and looked at the powerful men who were still appearing and surrounding him. There was a hint of disdain in his eyes. Is this all? Lin Yan asked softly, pretending not to take the people in front of him seriously at all. Isn't this enough? Kong asked with a smile. Even if you are very strong, little friend, there will always be times when your 2 fists are no match for your 4 hands, right? How about we have a good talk? Until this moment, Kong still did not give up his plan to persuade Lin Yan. Isn't that just taking a step back? Not to the point of. Unfortunately, his efforts were in vain from the beginning. As said before, the dragon has reverse scales, if you touch it you will die. Lin Yan never apologized for crushing the disgusting celestial dragons to death, and taking a step back was completely out of the question. And it's just like what he said. These people in front of me. Not enough. Thinking about it, Lin Yan folded his arms and smiled. Seriously, how long are you going to treat me as a loner? Lin Yan looked at Kong with eyes full of ridicule. Are you the only one who knows how to call people? I won't. Then, under the sudden change in Kong's expression, Lin Yan smiled and stretched out his hand and snapped his fingers. Honey, is it time for us to show up? Well, it seems that there are many good opponents this time. Shall we start directly? The 2 girls appeared beside Lin Yan in response. The pretty face is also full of pride. Lin Yan doesn't care. These guys in front of me. The 2 of them are also worthy. I want the Beasts Pirates on the left. They look very tough. Ain lightly stretched out his little finger and pointed at the Beasts Pirates. They all look like they have rough skin and thick flesh. It should be very durable, right? Then I am the dim sum person on the right, right? Hancock also sounded arrogant, as if he didn't take the people in front of him seriously at all. No matter what decision Lin Yan makes, neither girl would object. And at this time, naturally, I want to give my man some face. Hancock and Ain's ideas were surprisingly consistent for the first time. However, compared to the understatement and contemptuous attitude of the 3 people, the people on the opposite side were obviously not in a good mood, and their faces were as dark as the bottom of a pot. Can I bear this injustice? I just learned the grappling technique. Stop looking down on others. Jack the Drow, the bravest one, couldn't bear it any longer and charged towards Ain with an angry roar. It was also the first time he activated his fruit ability and transformed into a mammoth form. In this state, Jack the Drow can acquire astonishing defensive capabilities comparable to those of a mammoth, which is also his greatest reliance. I have never won a fight, and I have never died in a defeat. 1 billion bounties and 900 million defenses. He is the strongest war machine of the Beasts Pirates. However, it has to be said that this time, Jack the Drow picked the wrong opponent again. Mammoth. Whether it's flying in the sky, running on the ground or swimming in the water. Facing the dragon species at the apex of the entire food chain. All must die. Seeing the mammoth transformed by Jack the Drow charging toward him menacingly, Ain couldn't help but lick the corners of his mouth, and his eyes instantly turned into vertical pupils representing dragons. Comparing strength? This young lady loves to compete with others. Boom. Then under the dull eyes of everyone, Ain, whose size could be said to be completely disproportionate to that of a giant mammoth, actually grabbed Jack the Drow's tusks. Then he swung the mammoth directly, and it gets faster and faster. He also smashed it on the ground and abused others. Are you even a human being? At this moment, even Kong, the oldest and most stable man, looked confused. Others' eyes dropped to the floor. Roar. As if he had had enough fun, Ain threw Jack the Drow high into the air, let out a war cry, and rushed into the beast's pirates' camp with both swords in hand. The entire beast's pirates immediately started crying for father and mother. Not to mention that Ain also possesses the ability to regress the fruit and the ability to control elements unique to being a dragon. Untouchable. Everything around is Alain's home field. No need to play at all. If this continues, the entire beast's pirates will soon lose their combat effectiveness. Then dear, I'm going too, watch as Ain starts to make a fuss. Hancock raised an elegant smile on his pretty face, winked and blew a kiss to Lin Yan, and then disappeared in an instant. If Ain represents absolute power and extremely powerful special abilities, like a ferocious dragon in mythology, so what Hancock represents? That's the ultimate dexterity. And under the ultimate's dexterous movements, Hancock also has powerful abilities that are not inferior to Ain. With each sweet fruit's ability activated, one or several strong men were attacked and turned into stone statues, making them even more difficult to defend against than Ain. Otherwise, how could Hancock have the ability to tie with the current Ain? No doubt. Both of these girls are truly admiral-level fighters. Even more than that. If it weren't for one against many, this mighty and powerful group would have been defeated long ago. Not to mention, and the most powerful Lin Yan didn't take action. Compared to the task of two girls stopping a pirate group alone, Lin Yan has to face all the remaining strong men. Also some of the most powerful enemies, not ready to take action? Lin Yan narrowed his eyes slightly, staring closely at the enemies that might pose a threat to the two girls, including Marine Admiral Kizaru, Beast's pirates, and the three desert generals. He asked with a calm smile on his face. And everyone watched by Lin Yan. Don't dare to move, don't dare to move. Only when you truly face a powerful person can you deeply feel the heavy pressure that seems to exist all the time. Even the world's top combat forces present here. Don't dare to act rashly. After all, no one knows whether the man in front of him will pull out his shocking trump card again like before. Compared to the two girls who were making a big fuss, Lin Yan is the most dangerous existence. The atmosphere suddenly became a little quiet. The strong men stared closely at Lin Yan, looking for any possible flaw. But soon, some people couldn't wait any longer. After all, with the quarrel between the two girls, the weaker ones will be unable to withstand it. Even the Vice Admiral level characters are turning into bastards. Then at a certain moment, a roar suddenly came from the sea. Get out of the way. You bunch of useless trash, how long do you plan to wait? Accompanied by this roar, a huge figure came riding the waves. 4 Emperors Charlotte Linlin officially joins the battlefield. Charlotte Linlin stared at Lin Yan with angry eyes. Get away. He's mine. Charlotte Linlin stared at Lin Yan with resentful eyes. Especially after watching her pirate group being suppressed by a mere woman next to Lin Yan, Charlotte Linlin became even more furious. Even some of the most powerful members of the Big Mom Pirates were still stared at by Lin Yan without taking action. But for Charlotte Linlin, this is also a great shame. In addition, I remembered the situation when I had to retreat during the Buster call. Then let's settle old and new grudges together. In view of this, Charlotte Linlin could be said to have completely hated Lin Yan. She laughed harshly while riding the waves towards Lin Yan. There is no Edward to protect you this time. I want to see how you can escape death this time. Charlotte Linlin laughed wildly. It was as if he had already seen the scene of Lin Yan's fall. In response, Lin Yan just shrugged calmly. Is this woman crazy? After all, to be honest, when did I need Whitebeard to protect me? It's not like a newborn bird. In front of me who has more and more new abilities, holds powerful trump cards, and has almost no shortcomings, even the 4 emperors, are not immune to a touch. On the contrary, Lin Yan was a little curious about where Charlotte Linlin's confidence came from. Thinking about it, Lin Yan narrowed his eyes and looked at the 4 emperors coming in the wind and waves, and smiled sarcastically. Damn fat woman, aren't you afraid of being poked in a hole by my sword? Lin Yan smiled at Charlotte Linlin. Hearing Lin Yan's words, the expressions of everyone who knew Charlotte Linlin changed. Dead fat woman. Although there is nothing wrong with this, as we all know, Charlotte Linlin, who loves desserts, hates people saying this to her the most, and what follows. Lin Yan is dancing in a minefield. As one of the four emperors, Charlotte Linlin may be the most willful of the four. He himself suffers from a strange disease called anorexia. Once you don't get the dessert you want or you get pissed off. No. Back away. Mom is going to get sick. As the leader of the three dessert generals, Katakori's expression suddenly changed. He actually gave up the idea of keeping an eye on Lin Yan, and then shouted loudly at the big mom pirates not far away. Back off. Back off. Quick. Leave this guy alone. Mom is coming. Seemingly knowing what terrible thing was going to happen next, everyone in the big mom pirates immediately gave up resisting Hancock and fled. It seems to be compared to the Hancock in front of me. Their own leader Charlotte Linlin is generally a more terrifying enemy. And that's exactly what happened. I want you to die. Just when the big mom pirates started to retreat, Charlotte Linlin's angry roar came from the sea. His face became ferocious and terrifying, and his pupils were filled with madness. Anyone who knows a little bit about it changes his face again. You must know that Charlotte Linlin in this state is an existence that even her relatives do not recognize. Sometimes, he would even eat his own subordinates. Roar. Already in a state of disownment, Charlotte Linlin made a strange noise and set off a tsunami on the sea. At the same time, the thunderclouds and sun around her also rushed towards Lin Yan. That's one of Charlotte Linlin's trump cards. As a user of the soul fruit, Charlotte Linlin has the ability to control souls. She can also pour a large amount of souls into an object to give the object life and power. At this moment, the waves under her feet, the thunderclouds and the sun in her hands are this strange existence called Homits. In addition, Charlotte Linlin also possesses the power to judge other people's souls. Anyone who is even a little afraid in front of her will have their souls taken away easily. It can be said that it is among the four emperors. An existence with the most bizarre and unpredictable methods. Seeing Charlotte Linlin releasing a huge amount of souls in her roar, and even Homits, who was a trump card, everyone consciously retreated. Even Garp and Kong are no exception. Charlotte Linlin's ability is really too scary. Even Hancock and Ain, who were making a fuss before, returned to Lin Yan at this moment, looking solemnly at the crazy Charlotte Linlin. The only person present who showed no fear at all and seemed very relaxed was Lin Yan. Soul. But it looks like it's almost twisted, right? Lin Yan's eyes looked very dull. He looked at the two Homits who were charging towards him with more force than him. He reached out and touched his chin and thought for a moment. For this weird ability involving the soul, most of the strong people in this world are helpless. Even if they are as strong as Kong and Garp, they can only avoid the edge temporarily. Of course it can be resisted, but it cannot be eliminated. Relying on the strangeness and powerful power of the soul fruit to travel across the world, Charlotte Linlin is worthy of being one of the four emperors. But unfortunately, this time, Charlotte Linlin picked the wrong enemy. As if he thought of something quite interesting, Lin Yan raised the corners of his mouth and smiled. Then the next second, a holy sword whose entire body was entangled in the breeze and whose blade shape could not be seen clearly appeared in Lin Yan's hand. That sword. Seeing the appearance of the holy sword, Garp and Kong's expressions sank at the same time. Of course they knew that it was the holy sword that defeated Kaido head-on. A treasure that even the world government has to be afraid of peeking into. Just why did Lin Yan take it out here? You must know that Charlotte Linlin's homies is essentially an object endowed with a soul. No matter how sharp the sword is, it can't stop cutting, right? The two looked at each other, both seeing confusion in each other's eyes. Jia, however, before they could think about it, Lei Yun and Sun, the two fastest Homits, had already pounced on Lin Yan and let out a weird and confident laugh. They are soul bodies. Want to hurt yourself with a sword? It's simply wishful thinking. Lei Yun and Yang actually had humanized expressions of ridicule on their faces. However, in response, Lin Yan just raised the holy sword levelly, his expression neither sad nor happy. Strike air. Boom. The next moment, the breeze wrapped around the holy sword was compressed into ultra-high pressure air in one breath, and then released suddenly. The destructive power is comparable to that of a typhoon of more than 10 levels. The originally peaceful port was instantly shattered by this blow. Seeing this scene, Garp and Kong's eyes widened in shock. That is, Kong and Garp's eyes almost dropped. What the hell is that sword? The two of them watched in disbelief as the wind protection in Lin Yan's hand faded away and the holy sword emitted a dazzling light. They have never heard of such a treasure existing in the world. Not only can it erupt with the strange light that can defeat Kaido head-on, but now it seems that it also has the power to control the storm. Could this really be made by humans? Why don't you give us one as well? For a moment, Everyone was doubtful about life. Of course, no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't imagine that this holy sword itself was not man-made, but a genuine weapon made by God. A material miracle. And what shocked them the most was not this, but the attack wrapped in a powerful hurricane. It could actually affect the state of Homitz's soul. Grumble, caught off guard and hit head-on by the Wind King's hammer, Lei Yun and Sun's bodies trembled violently and let out a burst of painful screams. Even the power on his body has dropped a lot. They are hurt. This is something unprecedented. Could it be that this sword is the nemesis of Charlotte Linlin's abilities? Everyone's eyes widened, and the expressions on their faces were full of disbelief. Especially the members of the Big Mom Pirates, they are the people here who know best how terrifying their mother's abilities are. If it is a normal time, seeing that the two babies she had cultivated for who knows how long, homies, were injured, Charlotte Linlin would definitely take them back without hesitation. After all, anyone with a discerning eye can see that there is definitely something weird about the holy sword in Lin Yan's hand. But now, Charlotte Linlin's IQ is 0. In his eyes, only by completely destroying Lin Yan can he calm down his anger. So in view of this, Charlotte Linlin actually had no intention of taking back the two Homits, but instead rushed up from behind. At the same time, he also gave the stupidest order. F*K them all. Suddenly, all souls received orders from the Dominator. All kinds of Homits with different shapes, a huge number of soul messengers, and countless ordinary souls rushed towards Lin Yan. It's completely like a scene of 100 ghosts walking at night. This is the full strength of Charlotte Linlin as 4 emperors. If it were an ordinary strong man standing here, will he die in an instant? However, use this ability to deal with me? Are you really awake? Seeing the doomsday hell-like scene in front of him, Lin Yan just raised the corners of his mouth slightly, and then raised the holy sword in his hand high. With one sword, he stabbed the thundercloud closest to him. Laugh. Then, under everyone's shocked gaze, like a ray of sunshine piercing the darkness, homies, who would not have been hurt in any case, was stabbed through by Lin Yan with his sword. Chi chi chi. Then Lei Yun's body began to shake exaggeratedly, as if a blown-up balloon began to expand, and then disappeared completely with a bang. Dead. Dead? Mom's Homits? How could that be? Everyone's expressions changed. That holy sword can really kill souls. And that's exactly what happened, as said before. The holy sword Excalibur is a material miracle that brings together glory and victory, a genuine weapon made by God. Under the light of this holy sword, the souls controlled by Charlotte Linlin in front of them can only end up being dissolved. Ah, I want you to die. Even in a state of madness, Charlotte Linlin still felt heartbroken when she saw one of her most beloved Homits being wiped out by Lin Yan. As a result, her tone became even crazier. In anger, he actually made the decision to let all the souls attack Lin Yan again, and he also wrapped up all the souls and went out together. Don't you cry when you don't see the coffin. Looking at Charlotte Linlin in front of him, Lin Yan still had no intention of giving up, and Lin Yan's eyes became dangerous. In this case, let's fight. Thinking about it, Lin Yan once again raised the holy sword Excalibur in his hand, but this time, it was not a small fight before. Everyone, get back. Seemingly understanding what Lin Yan wanted to do, Kong issued the retreat order without hesitation. Then the next second, the light cannon that had been seen once before swept out, and the target was Charlotte Linlin, who was at the center of the soul storm. Boom. All is gone. Under this powerful light, the expressions on everyone's faces were frozen at the same moment. After a while, the golden light of rumors that swept across the sea slowly dissipated. Then when they saw Charlotte Linlin, who was at the center of the storm, everyone had complicated expressions on their faces. Everything is gone. Whether it's a soul or a Homits. The strength that Charlotte Linlin had accumulated for many years was completely wiped out by Lin Yan's previous blow. There is nothing we can do about this. In that light that was so dazzling that it was almost impossible to look directly at them, their fate was naturally decided from the beginning. However, Charlotte Linlin herself was unscathed. In addition to the huge amount of souls and homies offsetting a considerable part of the damage for her, it was also because of the man who had been standing in front of her at some point. Well, it's much easier to block than last time. It is none other than 4 Emperors Kaido, who has not yet joined the battlefield. Glancing at the gradually dissipating golden light around him, Kaido couldn't help but reveal a satisfied smile on his face and twisted his neck in contentment. Completely ignoring his skin, which was a little red due to the huge heat. It's not completely impossible to resist, right? Sure enough, Laozi, who is immortal, is still very strong. Thinking about it, Kaido turned his head and glanced at Charlotte Linlin. There was a trace of ridicule in his eyes. He is also a member of the Four Emperors, and he has some relationship with Charlotte Linlin, so he helped block it at the last moment. But to put it bluntly, the two of them are not friends. Seeing Charlotte Linlin, who suffered heavy losses, Kaido didn't mind adding insult to injury. Charlotte Linlin was uncharacteristically silent. She just stepped on the waves with a calm face and rushed towards Lin Yan. The calmer you are, the angrier you are. Then the next moment, everyone present heard a crisp scoff. The holy sword in Lin Yan's hand went straight through Charlotte Linlin's waist, and he glanced disdainfully. Steel balloon? That's it. Charlotte Linlin suddenly froze. Feeling the sharp pain coming from my waist, I lowered my head and looked in disbelief. His strong physique, which is called a steel balloon, is actually like this. Charlotte Linlin can't accept it. In this sea, besides Kaido, Charlotte Linlin may have the most pervert physique, strong and solid. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called a steel balloon. This is also the last trump card Charlotte Linlin can rely on. However, in front of this weird holy sword, my ability is like a joke. How could Charlotte Linlin accept this? In fact, at the end of the day, all this is her own fault. Do you have to use the homits made from the souls twisted by the soul fruit to challenge the glory of the holy sword? At this moment, you use your so-called steel balloon to challenge the sharpness of the holy sword? Who will die if you don't die? In fact, if she had played steadily from the beginning, Charlotte Linlin might not have lost so miserably, but at this time, Charlotte Linlin obviously could not have imagined this. In anger, she actually endured the severe pain regardless of her injuries, raised her hand again, and slapped Lin Yan. Lin Yan's eyes suddenly turned cold. Die. Then almost without hesitation, he drew out the holy sword and slashed Charlotte Linlin's neck. One can imagine. If this knife is effective, there will be one less emperor on the sea today. Stop. That's it. Naturally, some people would not let the situation develop. Katakuri, who reacted the fastest, took action together with Kaido. Katakuri grabbed Charlotte Linlin's shoulders and flew back. Kaido, on the other hand, chose to attack Lin Yan's holy sword. Under the cover of Kaido, Katakuri successfully fled the battlefield with the unwilling Charlotte Linlin. Kaido's mace hit the holy sword in Lin Yan's hand. Laugh. It can be said that there was almost no obstacle. The holy sword cut Kaido's mace into two pieces like cutting tofu, and then, without losing its power, it slashed straight towards Kaido's arm. In addition to the bug that Lin Yan has infinite martial arts, the sharpness of the holy sword itself can also be seen as Madara. Kaido reacts extremely quickly. Without hesitation, Kaido discarded the remaining half of the mace and fled away immediately. But even so, the holy sword still sliced through Kaido's arm. It left a deep visible bone scar on his arm, if Kaido hadn't retreated quickly. The consequences of this sword. Even people like Kaido couldn't help but fall silent. Of course, for a person like Kaido who has experienced countless cruel battles, this pain is nothing. Kaido is just a little shocked that he is actually injured. Obviously, even a famous knife can't cut my skin. In an instant, Kaido's eyes turned ferocious when he looked at Lin Yan. Along with it, there is also a hint of joy. It's the joy of finding your opponent. Something with the power to kill you has appeared. It took more than 10 years and countless cruel battles to gradually ascend to the throne of the Emperor of the Sea. The battle is for Kaido. It's as simple as eating and drinking. But almost no one can hurt themselves, be it famous swords, sea stones, or all kinds of weird weapons. Except for the man from Wano-kuni more than 10 years ago. No one can leave scars on themselves, but today, he felt pain again. Rather than being shocked and angry, Kaido is more of a surprise. If it weren't for the unpredictable consequences of a full-scale war with Lin Yan here, I'm afraid I would have suffered the same losses as Charlotte Linlin, otherwise Kaido would have rushed up long ago. After all, his beast's pirates are still here. Lin Yan in front of him is not alone either. Unlike Charlotte Linlin, Kaido still values his subordinates very much. In view of this, Kaido had no choice but to suppress his desire to fight. He took a deep look at Lin Yan and left one last sentence. I, Kaido, will take your life myself one day. With that said, Kaido turned around without any hesitation. Beast's pirates. All retreat. Completely ignoring his bloody arm, Kaido roared. Today's battle. They have tried their best. Whether it was Charlotte Linlin who suffered heavy losses at this time, or the injury on his own arm, I have to admit that this time they all underestimated the enemy. It is no longer suitable to continue fighting. After all, they and Marine are not wearing the same pants, right? Katakuri and Charlotte Linlin on the other side were also silent for a while, and finally, helplessly issued the same order as Beast's pirates. The power belonging to the Four Emperors group began to recede like the tide. Then immediately, the pressure came to Marine. What do we do now? Even at this point, Garp still showed no fear on his face. He just smiled and turned his head to Kong and asked. Let's retreat too. Kong shook his head. Anyone with a discerning eye can see that this time they have completely failed. There is no point in continuing to persist, but it will only increase many casualties. Even 4 Emperors Charlotte Linlin was defeated, and Kaido was injured as a result. The rest of them really had little chance. So the best decision is to just break it off. After giving Lin Yan a rather regretful look, Kong shook his head and turned around to give an order. Then at this moment, the entire Golden City suddenly began to boil. Literally boiling. At some point, gold appeared everywhere on the streets, boiling like boiling water. Then, a voice spread to everyone's ears. Master Lin Yan, let me handle the rest. Lin Yan was stunned when he heard this, then turned his head with interest and looked at the man who appeared at the top of the Golden City. You're back. How are things going? When Tetsolo, who was standing at the top and pretending, heard this, a bright smile immediately appeared on his face. Thanks to you, it's done. A happy smile appeared on Tetsolo's face. I'm sorry that I wasted a little time because I had to confirm it when I came back. I didn't expect that I missed the most exciting part, but there is no need to worry, I will take care of the rest. Tetsolo said confidently. At the same moment, Doflamingo's voice also sounded. Foo. If you don't do anything at this point, you will be looked down upon by your business partners, right? Seeing the 2 people appearing, Kong's face finally turned ugly. Golden Emperor Tesoro. And Doflamingo. Kong's face looked a little gloomy. As the resourceful general, from the moment he saw the 2 people appear, Kong knew that today's matter was really troublesome. Golden Emperor Tetsolo, this is still his home court. Shichibukai is a member of the family led by Doflamingo. 2 women who don't know the depth, but definitely look like admiral-level combatants. And the most terrifying Lin Yan, broken. We are surrounded. After all, just one Lin Yan is difficult enough to deal with, let alone having so many helpers now. Walk. So in view of this, Kong chose to retreat without hesitation. But how could Tetsolo allow them to do so? Having accepted a huge favor from Lin Yan and successfully rescued his beloved, Tetsolo's mind is now filled with how to repay Lin Yan. Captain Lin was offended. Want to leave? Have you asked me for my opinion? Golden Divine Punishment? Almost without hesitation, seeing that Kong was about to lead someone to escape, Tetsolo immediately took out his last trump card. The awakening ability of the Golden Fruit. In this state, Tetsolo can freely control the gold in the entire Golden City. The range of his abilities is incredibly large, and he can also attach gold to himself and become a giant. As said before, this is the home ground of his Golden Emperor. Tisk. Troublesome guy. Seeing Tesoro forcefully mobilizing all the gold in the Golden City, even Kong couldn't help but snorted angrily. Garp. Take the people away. I'm stopping you here. In a split second, Kong made a decision. Marshal, you. Garp's expression changed and he was about to object, but Kong had already turned around and rushed forward. The meaning is obvious. Someone has to make a sacrifice here. Otherwise, regardless of Lin Yan, Doflamingo and the Golden Emperor are not good friends. Garp had no choice but to grit his teeth and lead the others to retreat without saying a word. After Kong was cut off, most of the Marine and World Government people finally managed to escape back to the ship, and then immediately retreated under Garp's order without hesitation. The sacrifice of your companions must not be in vain. Lin Yan, on the other side, had no intention of pursuing him at all. He just watched with interest as Kong and Tetsolo's Golden Giant fought back and forth. After all, he was also the former Marine Marshal. Kong is also very strong. He exchanged a few punches with Tetsolo and then fell back to the ground. Nature. Lin Yan, the 2 girls, and Doflamingo led many people to immediately surround Kong. Kong was silent for a while, and finally smiled bitterly. This time you win. However, Lin Yan didn't pay attention to this. He just touched his chin and looked at Kong. Is it worth it? You should know that if you stay, you will have no chance, right? Lin Yan asked with a chuckle. Nature. Kong didn't mean to deny it, and nodded readily. The ambition to trap people is life or death. First I'm Marine, so I naturally have the obligation to take people back. Even if you die here. If a person has half his foot in the coffin, what's wrong with him? Kong smiled heartily. The eyes looking at Lin Yan were full of sighs. I have to admit that I was wrong before. Guys like you cannot be enemies at all. Same as Garp before. Kong first glanced at Lin Yan appreciatively, then shook his head regretfully. Too bad it's not Marine. Then Lin Yan also laughed. Seeing Kong's resolute face, Completely unconcerned with death in front of him, Lin Yan silently picked up the holy sword in his hand. And then the next second, bang, a figure suddenly fell from midair in front of everyone. This is a muscular man with fiery red hair. With a hearty smile on his face, he looks like an approachable big brother next door. But there was a conspicuous scar on his eye, and one arm disappeared. Everyone, it's been a long time no see, right? Looking at the man in front of him, even Lin Yan's eyes couldn't help but narrow slightly. 4 emperors. Redhead Shanks, he didn't expect that even he would be attracted to the battle here. He pondered for a moment. Lin Yan let go of his right hand, and the holy sword disappeared without a trace. Lin Yan looked thoughtfully at Shanks with a hearty smile in front of him. What brings you here? The atmosphere became somewhat relaxed. Shanks also laughed. Didn't I just happen to be passing by? Then I saw you guys fighting, so I came over to take a look. Sure enough, it's you who can make such a big fuss. Shanks looked at Lin Yan and smiled, looking very familiar. Of course, Lin Yan just curled his lips. I believe you. He somewhat understood the Shanks in front of him. Passing by chance? You are fooling the devil. But in the end, Lin Yan didn't really care. Anyway, Shanks was already here. So what are you doing here? So Lin Yan asked directly. Shanks had no intention of testing in a roundabout way. Hearing Lin Yan ask this question, Shanks immediately showed a bright smile on his face. Captain Lin, I'm not telling you, you are being stared at by a lot of people right now. I also saw Kaido and Charlotte Linlin leave here before, so. As he spoke, Shanks' tone paused slightly. How about a truce? A lot of people have died here today, right? Just think of it as giving me face. Although he had long known that Shanks was coming to say these words, Lin Yan still couldn't help but smile a little when looking at the look of the man in front of him. As expected of you. A person with face fruit ability, right? Just like Jack's 1 billion bounty and 900 million defense, the story about Shanks saying, give me a face, wherever he goes is about to become a meme. But not many people dare not give it. After all, the man in front of him is one of the emperors of the sea. Any big force must give him more or less face. Even the rest of the 4 emperors group is like this. But, seeing Shanks' cheerful expression, Lin Yan suddenly smiled wickedly. Why should I give you face? Lin Yan spoke slowly. Kaido and Charlotte Linlin didn't get any benefits from me. I believe you should be the same. As for Kong. Have you not noticed that there are so many people around me? As everyone knows, in addition to using the big to bully the small, traditional tactics include using the large to bully the small. As Lin Yan said before, even Kaido and Charlotte Linlin, as well as many powerful people sent by the world government, did not get any benefits here. If they were replaced by red hair, the result would probably be the same. In view of this, Lin Yan seems to have no need to give face to Shanks in front of him. Lin Yan looked at the red hair in front of him with interest. His eyes were full of teasing. Upon hearing this, Shanks smiled and shrugged. Don't say that. It's a bit too inhumane, isn't it? I thought I had a good relationship with that guy Whitebeard. As he spoke, Shanks' tone paused slightly. And it doesn't matter if you let an old marshal go back, right? I think you are not such a stingy man. Shanks smiled and said to Lin Yan, the air of a peacemaker. Lin Yan narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at Shanks in front of him. Apart from his extremely powerful strength, the most conspicuous thing about him was his red hair that was like flames. That's why the 4 emperors in front of them have always been called red-haired Shanks. And this color is like fire and blood. It's really hard not to think of someone. And Shanks is right about something. Lin Yan actually doesn't have any bad feelings towards Kong at all. As said before, many battles on this ocean are actually just because of different stances in the end. Personally, Lin Yan still has some respect for those who stick to their stance and struggle for their ideals from beginning to end. What he hates is just some superior trash. Thinking about it, Lin Yan slowly put away his aura. Okay, just think of it as giving you face, Lin Yan said to Shanks. Obviously, there is no intention to keep Kong here. Seeing Lin Yan's statement, several girls behind Lin Yan, as well as Tetsulo and Doflamingo, also withdrew their hostility. With the failure of this crusade by the world government, things have come to an end. The atmosphere gradually became more relaxed. Thank you so much. Shanks also breathed a sigh of relief. To be honest, he was really a little afraid that Lin Yan would continue to attack without hesitation, otherwise with the strength shown by the man in front of him. Not only is Kong likely to die, but even the Marines who have retreated a certain distance are probably in danger. If this team suffers heavy losses here, then the balance on the entire sea will be broken. This is definitely not what Shanks wants to see, Otherwise he wouldn't have stopped him at the last moment. Seeing Shank's relieved expression, Lin Yan gave him a meaningful look, thought about it, and suddenly spoke with a smile. So you are trying hard to maintain balance. What is your purpose? Lin Yan asked Shanks. In fact, this is also a question that many people, including him, have been puzzled by. The man in front of me is one of the 4 emperors in the sea. But Shanks is fundamentally different from the other 3. There are no fixed spheres of influence. There are not a large number of subordinates. I rarely take action. On the contrary, Shanks in front of him seems to have been playing the role of peacemaker in various major events. Whenever things develop to a certain extent, Shanks will always jump out of the corner and activate his face fruit ability. As a result, it often ends with both parties giving up and paying acceptable losses. Even a good old guy. There is no obligation to do so all the time. Lin Yan didn't believe that Shanks did this just because he was kind-hearted. If anyone really thought so, they would definitely look down on the Emperor of the Sea in front of him. Judging by Shanks' actions so far, Lin Yan can only think that he is playing a game. A big innings. Trying to maintain balance is also the judgment made by the man in front of him for his final goal. In other words, Shanks has reason not to let either the world government or the pirates form a crushing situation. In view of this, Lin Yan took advantage of Shanks' presence and asked directly. Upon hearing this, Shanks' expression was suddenly shocked, but soon, under Lin Yan's meaningful look, he laughed and laughed. After all, it is an agreement with someone. Faced with Lin Yan's inquiry, Shanks gave an ambiguous answer. Maybe it's just what he said. He has come to this point step by step, all for one unfulfilled agreement after another. Fine. After hearing Shanks' somewhat perfunctory answer, Lin Yan shook his head with a smile and stopped questioning Shanks in front of him. The man in front of him is the most mysterious emperor in the sea. Although he doesn't know the specific purpose of doing all this, Lin Yan believes it. One day he will confront the man in front of him. This is the intuition of a strong person, and there is no harm in exploring the answer to this question until then. Thinking about it, Lin Yan slowly looked away from Shanks and looked at Kong on the other side. You can go back now. Lin Yan spread his hands towards Kong and said. There is no point in leaving the other party alive. Lin Yan doesn't have any bad feelings towards the old marine. It's time for this incident to come to an end. Kong remained silent. He just took a deep look at Lin Yan in front of him, and then prepared to turn around and leave. Right, wait a minute. However, just when Kong turned around and was about to leave, Lin Yan seemed to suddenly remember something and stopped Kong with a soft smile. When you go back, can you pass a message to someone for me? Lin Yan asked Kong with a smile. Kong paused slightly, pondered for a long time, and finally nodded slightly. Please say. He seemed to have realized what Lin Yan was going to say. And that's exactly what happened. Facing Kong, who looked a little heavy, Lin Yan didn't hesitate at all and just spoke very straightforwardly. Please go back and tell those high-ranking losers that one day, they will be pulled down from the altar, and this day shouldn't be too long. Although he had long known that Lin Yan would say such words, after actually hearing it, Kong couldn't help but feel a trace of shock on his face. I'll bring it. Looking at Lin Yan, who is full of high spirits and full of confidence. For a moment, Kong even fell into a trance. Vaguely, she seemed to see a rising ruler of the sea. Lin Yan in front of her was the first to dare to say such words to the celestial dragons. Whether you are arrogant or really confident, dare to say such a thing. This is enough to prove the courage of the man in front of you. So in view of this, Kong finally nodded. He would take it back intact, but what kind of reaction the celestial dragons would have? He couldn't do anything about it. Lin Yan certainly has no opinion on this. Kong nodded to Lin Yan and left without looking back. Declare the complete end of this incident. The result is the same as what Lin Yan said before. It is a complete failure of world government and marine. Not long after, only his own people and Shanks, who had been watching Lin Yan with interest, were left at the port. Captain Lin, what you said before may lead to huge trouble. A long while. Shanks looked at Lin Yan with some admiration and said. As said before, Lin Yan is the first to dare to speak openly to celestial dragons like this. The celestial dragons, who have ruled the world for 800 years, are so powerful that it is unimaginable. This is something that every strong person knows. As the Emperor of the Sea, Shanks feels this deeply. Maybe it looks like that. Nashi and the celestial dragons, who claim to be gods, are nothing more than wine sacks and rice sacks. But if anyone really thinks that the world government that has been able to rule the world for 800 years is really weak and incompetent, then he will definitely die in an ugly way. The celestial dragons hold a great secret. The background is so strong that even Whitebeard and the Sea Emperor like him will not easily provoke him. Shanks didn't believe Lin Yan couldn't think of this. But just as it was, Shanks was impressed by Lin Yan's actions before. Be fearless. It is the basic quality to become a strong person. It doesn't matter. The thing I'm not afraid of most is trouble, especially the kind of trouble that makes me unhappy. Seeing Shanks' admiring eyes, Lin Yan raised the corner of his mouth and smiled. Different from everyone else in this world, Lin Yan is not afraid of the so-called world aristocrats at all. Because he scorns the arrogance of claiming to be a god, and because he is confident in his own power. As he said, one day, those high-ranking celestial dragons will be pulled down from the altar and bear the wrath of the entire world for 800 years. And in this chaotic era, Lin Yan believes that day will not come too far away. Speaking of which, where is the pirate group under your command? Slowly putting away his somewhat mocking eyes, Lin Yan tilted his head, turned to Shanks and asked. After all, no matter what, Red Hair Pirates is also one of the 4 Emperors groups. One can imagine how powerful it is. As a result, Captain Shanks is the only one seen running around most of the time. Isn't it a little weird? Ha ha ha. We are all people who love traveling. Even I pass by chance. Others must be traveling around the world, right? Facing Lin Yan's inquiry, Shanks had a hearty smile on his face. As one of the 4 emperors, Shanks' territory can be said to be sparse, and he also has a personality that loves traveling and partying. As a captain of the Red Hair Pirates, he woke up after being drunk every day and drank again and again. Such a fragmented territory allows Shanks to not only protect the people under his protection, but also better enjoy poetry in the distance. As said before, the man in front of him is the most special one among the 4 sea emperors. It is also the most mysterious one. Forget it. It's my fault for seriously asking you such a question. Seeing the hearty smile on Shanks' face, Lin Yan couldn't help rolling his eyes and simply stopped asking any more questions. With that said, Lin Yan waved his hand at Shanks with some disgust. Okay, now that the matter has been resolved, you're almost ready to go home, right? Although I don't know what the specific purpose of Shanks is. But in his role as a mediator between various forces, Shanks has undoubtedly been quite successful. Well, that was originally the plan. Faced with Lin Yan's disdain, Shanks didn't take it seriously, but once again showed a hearty smile on his face. Then under Lin Yan's somewhat surprised look, Shanks suddenly narrowed his eyes slightly. But now, I feel like I don't want to leave. Shanks narrowed his eyes and said this. Then under Lin Yan's interested eyes, a powerful aura suddenly burst out from all over his body. It's obvious. This is an invitation to fight. Shanks looked at Lin Yan with eyes full of fighting intent. Originally, Shanks only had a vague impression of the captain of the 17th Division of the Whitebeard Pirates in front of him, and then he was quite interested in the various major events caused by Lin Yan. But now after meeting me, especially Lin Yan's previous declaration against celestial dragons, Shanks has become completely interested. Along with this, his hands were naturally itchy. You must know that he hadn't done anything for a long time. Seriously. However, facing the fighting spirit of Shanks in front of him, Lin Yan just glanced at his broken arm with a half-smile. You shouldn't be able to use your full strength in your current state, right? Lin Yan smiled and shrugged. For some special reason, Shanks bet one of his arms on East Blue, entrusting his hope and Straw Hats will to a certain boy. Even the Emperor of the Sea will naturally lose strength after losing an arm. After Shanks lost his arm, even Mihawk lost interest in fighting him one-on-one. How can this be done? However, facing Lin Yan's tactful rejection, Shanks just showed a wild smile on his face. How could a real man be trapped by such a small difficulty? As he spoke, Shanks' aura became more powerful. And if you reject me because of such a trivial matter, even I will be troubled. Seeing that Shanks in front of him didn't look like he was joking, Lin Yan's eyes narrowed again. After a long while, he nodded slightly. In that case, you go first. Lin Yan looked at Shanks with a serious expression. This guy in front of me. Not kidding. He really wanted to challenge himself to a duel. From Shanks's fighting eyes, Lin Yan had already realized this. So in view of this, naturally, he had only one answer. If you want to fight, then fight, just in time. Lin Yan was also very interested in how powerful Shanks was in front of him. Okay, then I'm coming. Seeing Lin Yan agreeing, Shanks was not polite at all. He laughed and nodded. Immediately, his aura suddenly changed. Boom. This is. As Shanks showed his strength, everyone except Lin Yan had extremely shocked expressions on their faces. Hancock and Ain's eyes narrowed. Doflamingo and Tezzolo's expressions changed greatly. Conqueror's Haki. As a powerful person in this world, everyone naturally knows what kind of aura is wrapped around Shanks at this moment. Conqueror's Haki. Only one person among millions has the talent and qualifications to become a king. Unlike armament Haki and observation Haki, Conqueror's Haki cannot be cultivated at all. He reflects a person's innate destiny. Only those who bear fate can have such qualifications. Therefore, the holder of Conqueror's Haki, also known as the posture of a king. Hancock and Doflamingo also have Conqueror's Haki on them. But even so, after feeling the Conqueror's Haki on Shanks, the two still had shocked expressions on their faces. Is this really how far Conqueror's Haki can go? As the same holders, Hancock and Doflamingo generally know that Conqueror's Haki can only act as a deterrent and has a certain ability to weaken powerful enemies. But Shanks's are completely different. The Conqueror's Haki in him has almost turned into reality and begun to interfere with the physical world. Even holders like Hancock and Doflamingo felt a little dizzy when they were enveloped by Shanks' Conqueror's Haki. I see. Is this your qualification? The only person present who didn't show a shocked expression was Lin Yan. Looking at Shanks, who was shrouded in Conqueror's Haki at this moment, like a tyrant on the sea, Lin Yan just raised the corner of his mouth and smiled. Conqueror's Haki, the qualifications to become a king. But if that's all it takes, boom. At a certain moment, Lin Yan's eyes suddenly condensed, and a Conqueror's Haki that could compete with Shanks also rose from Lin Yan's body. Varied? It seemed that he had not expected such a thing at all, and even Shanks had a shocked expression on his face. How can it be? How old is Lin Yan? As perhaps the top holder of Conqueror's Haki in the world, Shanks knows very well that the power of Conqueror's Haki is directly proportional to a person's courage. In other words, the man in front of me, who is rising like a shooting star, actually has courage and ambition comparable to that of the entire world? This is really surprising. Seeing Lin Yan's Conqueror's Haki, who was not inferior to him at all, and even slightly better than him, even Shanks could only smile bitterly. Then in that case, let me confirm it. But soon, Shanks' eyes became determined. Since he started the battle himself, you must have the consciousness to bet something. Thinking about it, Shanks slowly drew out his sword and walked towards Lin Yan step by step. The man moves very slowly. It was so slow that it didn't look like the speed a swordsman should have. But everyone present felt an amazing sense of oppression from Shanks' pace. This is the world's top powerhouse. Is this what you're doing? Lin Yan raised the corner of his mouth and smiled, but also walked directly towards Shanks without dodging. If you ignore the growing momentum in the field. For those who didn't know, I thought these two people were taking a walk here. It seems that I have underestimated it. As the two got closer to each other, the atmosphere in the field became more and more oppressive. Even people like Doflamingo could see sweat on their foreheads and couldn't help but sigh. I originally thought I was strong enough, but look at the two people in front of me. Doflamingo just realized that he is still far from the top in the world. Just the atmosphere in the venue made it difficult to breathe. One can only imagine what would happen to him when faced with a top expert who takes action seriously. Doflamingo lowered his head and his eyes flashed, not knowing what he was thinking for a moment. At the same time, other people kept their eyes on the two of them, watching Lin Yan and Shanks approaching each other as if they were strolling in the garden. Coming. And at the moment when the two figures intertwined, everyone couldn't help shouting in their hearts. There is no flash of sword, there was no violent roar. Just at the moment of misalignment, the two people's figures flashed in unison, and then continued to move forward as if nothing had happened, changing positions. This is really. Today is my scare day, right? Stopping where Lin Yan was just standing, Shanks slowly put away the huge Conqueror's Haki and put away his sword with a wry smile on his face. It was only then that no one noticed. At some point, a bloodstain appeared on Shanks' arm. Blood was continuously spilling on the ground along the man's arm. But Shanks didn't care at all about this. There is no doubt that he lost the previous confrontation. And Lin Yan has already shown mercy. If not, it's not as simple as a harmless wound. The skills are not as good as the people, there is nothing to say. Shanks acted very free and easy. Seeing his indifferent expression, Lin Yan smiled and shrugged. So didn't I tell you? After losing an arm, your strength is definitely not at its peak, and you can't beat me with skills alone. Lin Yan said this with a smile, and his words were full of strong confidence. If it is based on combat skills alone, how could Shanks win himself? Not to mention he also lost an arm. In a battle between top experts, any flaw is fatal. Hearing this, even Shanks could only smile bitterly and nod. That's really a pity. Shanks looked at Lin Yan with regret and said. There is no doubt that the man in front of him is a top strong man, no matter in terms of courage or strength, he is not inferior to himself. Looking at his empty arms, Shanks suddenly felt a little pity. If I could use my full strength, today might be a pretty exciting battle, right? But that's the kind of man he is. The emotion of pity comes and goes quickly. Soon, a smile appeared on Shanks' face again. Speaking of which, how did you do it before? I obviously showed the fastest speed, but I was still suppressed. Shanks looked at Lin Yan curiously and asked. He himself is a powerful swordsman who can compete with Mihawk, the world's greatest swordsman. The fight between the two before was very simple to say the least. It's just a matter of comparing who can slash faster. There is no doubt about the result. Facing Lin Yan was his own disastrous defeat. Shanks couldn't even see how Lin Yan took action, and he was slashed on his arm. It can be said that he was quite interested in this. You must know that he has shown his full strength at this stage. In the end, he was crushed mercilessly, and at a speed far exceeding his own. Can human swordsmanship really be this fast? Could it be that the Lin Yan in front of him is actually some other race wearing human skin? Think of this. Shanks looked at Lin Yan with more curiosity. It's just a reasonable use of one's body. Faced with Shanks' very curious eyes, Lin Yan just smiled and shook his head. Use your body appropriately? Can you demonstrate it? Hearing what Lin Yan said, Shanks' interest was completely aroused. He pondered for a moment and suddenly asked Lin Yan with a smile. Certainly. Lin Yan had no intention of refusing. Now that the outcome has been decided, Shanks must know how he lost, right? Although Lin Yan feels that he will never be able to learn in this life. Thinking about it, Lin Yan slowly raised the sword in his hand. Then under the gaze of everyone, he casually waved the holy sword in his hand. It looked like a very ordinary slash. Hancock, Doflamingo, Tetsolo and others who had little knowledge of swordsmanship all raised question marks with strange expressions on their faces. After all, Lin Yan's slash was not fast at all. He looks no different from an ordinary swordsman. However, Ain, who was highly accomplished in swordsmanship, and Shanks himself, widened their eyes for a moment, with horrified expressions on their faces. How did you do it? Saw incredible things. Even Shanks couldn't keep calm and immediately asked Lin Yan anxiously. Why doesn't your sword accelerate? Shanks' face was full of shock. Am I still in the F*King physical world? Newton's coffin boards are going to fly. As one of the top swordsmen in the world, Shanks thinks he knows a lot about swordsmanship, not to mention that he has a close friend who is the world's greatest swordsman. Shanks knows it very well. No matter how gorgeous the sword moves look, or how amazing the speed of the cuts, any sword skill starts from scratch and reaches the highest speed. Without exception, even as powerful as Mihawk is, he can't overcome this. But Lin Yan in front of me, absolutely not. His sword didn't seem to need to be accelerated at all. It was at its highest speed from the moment it was released, and the same was true when it stopped. From 0 to 100, and then from 100 to 0. Is this really F*King possible for humans to do? Shanks finally knew where he lost. It's a ghost if you don't lose. This is far more terrifying than the so-called rapid slashing. Comparing the slashing speed with Lin Yan who possesses such amazing skills. That's just because of longevity. Only this ghost can win. Even if Lin Yan's slashing speed was twice as slow as his own, under this weird acceleration, he would definitely be the first to be hit. Shanks's mind is now full of questions. How on earth did he do it? It's actually really easy. Seeing Shanks' horrified expression, Lin Yan just raised the corners of his mouth and smiled. Shanks, do you know how many muscles there are in the human body and what direction each muscle exerts force? This. Shanks' expression was stunned. There is one thing that he really doesn't know. Who has nothing to do to study this? Ignoring Shanks' confused expression, Lin Yan continued. When a swordsman can completely control every muscle in his body, he can concentrate the power of cutting to the maximum extent, thus infinitely focusing the power of wielding the sword on one point, achieving astonishing results. Break out. As he spoke, Lin Yan's tone paused slightly. In addition, you can control the sword more smoothly, minimizing all resistance, and then use these to the ultimate. It will become what it is now. Lin Yan suddenly swung a slash. Just like before, it was so fast that I couldn't see what was going on. I just felt that Lin Yan seemed to have dropped the frame, and the sword in his hand had changed position. Facing Shanks who was confused again, Lin Yan smiled softly. Come and see? Are you really a human being? Suppressing the shock in his heart, Shanks swallowed a rare swallow, and then cautiously came forward. Although he didn't know what Lin Yan wanted him to see, Shanks still walked forward obediently and carefully observed the place Lin Yan had just chopped. This. Then the next second, Shanks' eyes became horrified. I saw the place where Lin Yan had just slashed. At this moment, a trace that is difficult to distinguish with the naked eye has been left. If Shanks hadn't had astonishing eyesight as a Four Emperors, he might not have noticed it at all. Suddenly, I had a very bad feeling in my heart. Shanks swallowed, then cautiously reached forward and touched the strange mark. Laugh. Then with a soft sound, Shanks' finger was cut open. Shanks looked at his bleeding fingers and fell into silence. Simply rely on that terrifying slash to open a hole in the air that cannot be healed for a while. Can it be used as an attack method? It has to be said that even he is a little skeptical about life. Looking at Lin Yan with a smile on his face, Shanks just wants to ask one question now. Dude, do we really live in a world?